so now I'm live. So just letting you guys know. So, anyways, so I guess our contention was that like when it comes to a human being, the reason why taking control over their body would be necessary to own them is because there's already another entity within that is already controlling it. So, in order to relinquish the only way to transfer the title of that thing to that person is for them to relinquish that control, which they can't do. Whereas an animal, there is no moral entity in there to dispute with. So you don't need to get into the mind of an animal in order to own it, because to us, an animal is no different than a rock, right? Because there's no
so you
dispute.
use like a Descartes argument where it's like just like a machine or whatever.
Yeah, it's no, to us, an animal is no different than a rock. You know what I mean? You could do whatever you want to it, because assuming that you're the owner of the rock, I'm the animal. Like, you could eat it, toss it out the window, other things, whatever.
So Sioux-Files get a pass just doing whatever they want with it, right?
Assuming that they own the animal. But listen, I'm on YouTube,
Bob,
so let's not get too deep into that, if that's okay.
Well, actually, one more thing. I think my main issue with that argument, and I think you made this concession as well, is like when we say like this person owns another person, we typically mean to say like this person is capable of like physically coercing this person to do X, Y, and Z.
No, you're right.
Like,
yeah,
in no part of that. So that, but that is another valid sense of like slavery or ownership.
Oh yes, you are right.
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
so
that was my main issue.
No, yeah, my response to that would be there's no real valid way to do that without violating their consent, right? So, and if they are consenting, then it wouldn't be slavery because they're agreeing to do it. That would just be like a normal job.
I think I have an issue with the second part, but I mean that's my main issue. So I think.
So like I don't think to us libertarians, like so long as you are agreeing to do something for another person. Now there are some things that some people find to be very nasty that other people don't think people should be allowed to do for other people, right? But so long as there's no rights violation going on there, no matter how disgusting or weird I might think that transaction may be, I can't say that there's a rights violation going on there, because there's no person whose rights are being violated if you're consenting. Did somebody write something in the comment section?
Varsity.
Okay.
Said something.
Okay, so you agree that someone living in a state implicitly consents to the law of the state? No, I don't agree with that.
No. He said you mainly disagree with that.
Oh yeah, I disagree with that. Because so I look at the state as basically being no different than a criminal organization. And the reason why is because they're not the owners of the land in which your property is on. So, they don't have a right to tell you to do anything. They don't have a right to tell you to pay this, pay that, for any reason. Even if it's going to benefit you, like, even if you think that something may be better for another person, doesn't give you the right to force them to do it. A right to tell you. Oh, well then I'm sorry. Then I read that incorrectly then. Sorry. Oh shit, I need to change the title of this YouTube video. I have it on the title on yesterday's live stream. Whoopsie. Hope you guys are cooking up something nice in this comment section.
Oh, Varsity has something for you.
I see. He's typing. Okay, if you do agree with premise 5, you don't believe someone implicitly consents to the laws of the state by virtue of living there. Yeah, no, I don't agree that simply because you live in an area automatically means that you consent to whatever law that they put on you. No, I Well, yes, because you're the owner of. The question is, do you have rules in your house? And the answer is yes, because you're the owner of your house. So you can have any rule you want in your house.
Is this just gonna come down to whether the state owns your property or whatever?
Well, it
will be their property, but
the state can't really own anything because they're violators of rights. It would just be a company providing you a service. So for instance, like if you're renting a house from another person, that would be an instance of like you living somewhere where you don't own and that you don't always have the right to do what you want in. What are some examples of rules that you have in my house? Don't shit on the floor. I think that's a basic rule everyone should have in their house, right?
Speak for yourself.
You were actually gonna use that one? Shit, I stole it from you.
But anyways, what was I gonna say? What's to stop you from just taking the state, like the U.S., just one big megacorp, and you're a latecomer, and so really all this is you paying a fee for like some kind of tip to the state.
Well, the state wouldn't be. Okay, so like I have to explain something if that's okay. So the way how I define a state is an unjust. I look at a state as being a legitimized criminal organization. A criminal organization doesn't own the things in which they take. If the person owns the thing, then they are the owner. They're not a criminal. They're not a state. They're not a recognized criminal organization. So you can't say like a state is just charging you rent. Well, a state can't charge you rent. That's a tax because they don't own the land. A person who doesn't own a land can't charge you rent on it. I mean, they could, but that would be a violation of your rights, and that would be more. I would more call it a tax or a rights violation.
But how do we know it's a tax as opposed to like a just like fee or tipping like service?
Whether or not the person owns it or not.
Yeah. But I feel like you still need to demonstrate whether like the U.S. actually owns the land that you're living on, right? You still need to demonstrate that.
Are you talking about like my land specifically? Because I don't have any land.
What do you mean?
Are you talking about the land like the United States? Or my land specifically? Because I don't have a land.
Yeah, you're saying the U.S. doesn't own that.
Yeah, they
doesn't
own
the land that you...
No.
But what if they do? Like you would have to show that, right?
They would have to prove like that. You would have to demonstrate that they are the just owners. So under the libertarian ethic, there's only two ways, and there's a criteria in which makes you the owner of something, right? Or the just owner of something, right? Which is original appropriation and consensual transaction, homesteading, and then I give you this for that, or I give you a gift or whatever. As far as I could tell, the United States did not get its land through consensual transaction. It did not get its land through homesteading. It didn't homestead the land. It was people already here. So therefore, the state is not the just owner of the property.
Oh, really quickly, Varsity is asking you a question, chat.
If I go to your house and shit on your bedroom floor, would I feel justified? Would you feel... Of course I would. Well, but I would have the right to kick you off my land because it is my land. Can it be Friday yet again? Well, because I'm the property owner.
And what says that you're the property owner?
If the hypothetical is that I'm not the piper, when that specific hypothetical.
But what? Yes, but like what? This is without the state right? This is without any state to enforce anything, correct? There's be no monopoly and violence whatsoever. In
Yes, sir.
In which case, what would enforce your rights to own the land? Who says you own the land? Wouldn't there be competing claims?
Oh, so what you could do is you can hire somebody to protect you, or you can protect yourself.
Well, in that case, aren't you just enforcing a monopoly over violence over that particular area?
Well, you could be a monopoly of over violence over your own property, but the issue is when you're. Hold on, allow me to finish this one. This one last statement. You can't be a monopoly on violence over property in which you do not own, which the state is. They are not the owners.
Well, the state, yeah, okay. The state, it doesn't care if it owns the land or not. What the state is a monopoly over violence to protect class interests. The state protects landowners because the landowners as a class control the state. However, the state itself can see to it it can requisition a land because the state has sovereignty over the area. The problem is, though, with the proposition of you introducing monopoly over violence that are personal, whereas you hire armed security or you have yourself defending the land, then you're just enforcing your own microstate. You aren't really getting rid of the state, you're just cracking it to a million pieces.
What's the question?
The question was, are you actually going to get rid of the state defined as being
Ideally.
a monopoly over violence?
Ideally.
How would you do that? Because if you do that, then you can't really have land ownership.
Yeah, you can. You don't need a state in order to own a land.
You're establishing monopolies over violence in order to protect your right to own the land, correct?
Well, you don't need to. You can hire someone else to protect your land too.
Hiring somebody else to protect your land would still be enforcing a monopoly over violence. You're just outsourcing it to someone subservient to you. That's akin to state hiring police or military forces.
Yeah, you can put it however you like. In the end of the day, you are allowed to protect your property and keep people off of your property by any means necessary.
So in that case, you aren't really destroying the state. You're just decentralizing / breaking it apart into many pieces.
Yeah, ideally, yeah. And without violence, ideally.
Well, first off, there'd be no way you could create the situation without some kind of violent event to destroy the current order.
Not with that attitude.
How would you execute such a thing?
We gotta change people's minds, man. We gotta get rid of people's superstition of authority, and we gotta call out what taxation actually is, and stop plugging our ears in and being like, oh, you know, the state is good for us. It does good thing for us. So it does nothing wrong. Blah 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 blah. You know.
How would you convince the bourgeois to this position when the state that they control is actively assisting them in
bourgeois position? Sorry, I've never heard anyone say that in real life, unironically. Go ahead.
As I said, how would you counteract the bourgeois position? To them, the state defends their interests, defends their property, defends their ability to control society. To get rid of this state would attack their position, would deprive them of their ability to generate power.
But I would say that's a good thing, is it not? Shouldn't we take away power from crony capitalists who are using the state in order to fill their pockets? I think to me and you should be on the same side on this one, right?
It's true that we should. It's true that the bourgeois should be liquidated of their power, not as persons, but as their power.
Well, if you mean bourgeois, you mean like the crony capitalists who are using the state to benefit themselves.
I personally mean all landowners / hot bourgeois, which are investors / essentially business owners.
Oh, well, then I disagree with you on that one, because not every landowner I would consider to be a crony capitalist. You could be a landowner without harming anyone.
Well, capitalism by definition is capitalism as it's done now is done through a wage system, whereas
right now we live in crony capitalism. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to make a small correction if that's okay. We live under crony capitalism right now. I'm against crony capitalism.
How would your vision of capitalism be effectively different as a mode of production?
Well, because it would actually be a free market as it isn't supposed to be. Capitalism is just free markets. It's individuals coming together who own their property to consensually transact the goods and services in which they own. And I think that's good. The market, the state disrupts that by forcing individuals to fund things in which they don't want to fund or would otherwise not, and pay into a system in which they don't support, or and we sit here and we be like, oh, it's okay because the state, it helps us. But I disagree.
I'm not going to comment on how the state helps us or not, but I will say that under this system of free market exchange, there are going to be people who create goods and people who invest, correct?
Well, yes,
there's going
but
to be
investing is good. Landowning is good.
There's going to be people who own land, who own property, who do not work this land, correct?
That's good. Yeah, that's all the power to them.
These people who generate goods and services and otherwise commodities, they are going to be paid wages for what they create, correct?
Yep. People, you got to work to live.
Would they be paid wages in accordance to what they are actually creating in the terms of the value they are generating, or would they be paid wages in according to the whims of the market?
Well, the market determines how the value of the goods and services in which you provide.
How would the market determine value when goods and commodities as a whole cannot exist without labor being put into them? Wouldn't the labor that is put into commodities generate the value for which the commodities are traded for and exchanged?
Well, because value is a subjective, and the reason, so for instance, if you put into a lot of labor into something, that doesn't necessarily make it valuable, because it has to be something that individuals find valuable. If people don't find your labor to be valuable, then your labor is worth nothing. So in the end of the day, because we live under a subjective system, the market, and when I mean the market, I mean individuals participating in the market. They basically choose based on what they want and what they don't want, the value of the goods and services in which you provide.
Well, you make a good point in that labor itself, just without any context, does not provide value in and of itself. However, what determines what is and isn't valuable isn't just labor. What determines what is and isn't valuable is the society around that labor is formed. For example, if an individual actor does not regard a pair of shoes as valuable, that doesn't make the shoes non-valuable, because the individual actor is just one part of the equation. The entire society is what determines ultimately the value, and in that sense, what is socially necessary to the society, what is socially necessary for labor to produce.
Oh, no, I disagree with the society part. I think individuals choose what the value of goods and services. The person who values the goods and services, that puts a value on the goods and services in which you provide, are the people who purchase that good and services. And if they don't hold on, allow me to finish, because I allowed you to finish, if that's all right. Okay. Let's try to be one-on-one, so basically, what I was going to say is that so for instance, if I say, hey, give me $5 to go run to the store and fetch me this, your labor is to do that thing is only worth what other people are willing to pay you to do that thing for. So if no one's willing to pay you for $20 in order to do that, as opposed to $5, well, then you're not really worth $20. You're worth $5, because that is what people are willing to pay you. Individuals choose based on what they are willing to buy and what they're not willing to buy, and based on those signals and what they buy and what they don't buy, those basically they send signals through the price mechanism to the individuals who sell that good to determine what should be sold later, at what quantity, and how much, for how much. So yeah, it isn't like society is a group of people. A group of people can't act. Only individuals can act.
If that were the case, then wouldn't individual items always be constantly price fluctuating all the time, instead of a situation where we find ourselves in today, in which most commodities are priced similarly? There's occasional changes in response to oversupply, but usually it's just a situation where this good costs this much no matter what you do with it, because of, that's what the money price of the commodity is, as determined by the firm that's selling it, which is informed by several factors. But it's not exactly a market factor, because if, say, a group of individuals decided they will not buy a commodity, say a amusement park ticket or something, they will not buy it, or the ones that people are selling it, and this group of people tries to make an effort to not buy it explicitly and says they will only buy it at this much, that won't really change the price of the ticket, because the larger society is first off going to ignore the smaller group, but it wouldn't really change the price because mostly because the larger society is going to ignore a smaller group, but also because why would these firms cater to individual actors, individual small groupings, when they could just ignore it and they know the value of which they are supposedly selling?
Yeah, so when it comes to individual items are priced by the person who's selling it. So just because people aren't always rational or update every second what they think the price ought to be at the current value is, doesn't automatically mean that that individuals are the ones that are setting the prices. Individuals, when you go to the grocery store, the person who owns that grocery store, they're the ones who set the price, and they set the price based on what other people are willing to buy it for, and how much they could make off of that transaction. They calculate it that way. So
that's part of it.
Yeah, so basically, based off of all that information, that's how they sell things. And the pricing market mechanism isn't perfect because human beings are not perfect. We don't always have perfect information, but that doesn't change the fact that all of the prices that we are selling and are based on our subjective whims. We are not whims, but subjective interests that are usually aligned with some sort of market, whatever's going on in the market. Like if the price of this goes higher, then generally you're going to sell more for it because you want to make more money from it. So it's all based on individuals' subjective evaluations of each individual good and service.
Let's detract from the value.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. Do you mind holding your question for 1 second? There is a question There's a question in the comment section. Yeah, and I was
just about to say there is another question. So.
Oh, okay. Then I'm sorry then. So I'm gonna read this then. 1 sec. Let me get somewhere safe in the video game that I'm playing, in World of Warcraft.
I was just about to say there was another question.
Okay, yeah, no, you're good. I thought you were gonna ask a question. That's what. So I really don't understand the distinction between ideal and crony capitalism, given we have a free market. Is it not inevitable that certain individuals and businesses will outcompete and consolidate wealth? Well, yes, of course that's inevitable because people are unequal, so therefore some people are going to make more than others. But I don't think inequality is a bad thing. And once those actors accumulate enough wealth, what's stopping them from leveraging it for greater consolidation and power, i.e. by abusing the state, or perhaps even, this analogy to the state, this power accumulation, begetting of power, appears to be general throughout history. And it being the case, how does your ideal form of capitalism, with what appears to be an unescapable aspect of human nature? Well, listen, I'm not going to sit here and say that every form, and once we institute anarcho-capitalism, there will be nothing that could possibly take it down, and we will have the strongest force in the like. In the end of the day, we're only as strong as the people who are under our system, and the people who are willing to fight other people who are willing to destroy our system. And that's true for any system, even for a democracy, whether it be monarchy, like you said, through any government throughout the history. So simply because, but I don't weigh whether or not anarcho-capitalism is a good system or ideology based on whether or not there's a higher percentage chance and it may survive the wars to come. You know, I support anarcho-capitalism because I believe it is a more just ideology. It is a ideology that doesn't violate the consent of innocent people. And let's say we had, like I gave the example earlier, let's say we had a state which had slavery, that, you know, like the Egyptian country with all these slaves, and they had a massive slave army, and then there's like the smaller settlement of people that doesn't have slavery, and it's like free people. You know, are you gonna say, oh well, I'm gonna support the people who have slaves because, you know, that smaller country that doesn't have slaves has a smaller percentage chance of being taken over, or a higher percentage chance of being taken over by a larger government? I would say no. I would say that it depends on whether or not that state is, not that those people are, what they're doing is just. And because what I think what those people are doing are just by not having slavery, I'm going to support them as opposed to the people who do have slavery, despite the fact that they may have a larger force or larger army. And that's just my quick answer to that. Anyone else? On towers? Asking your question on towers? Or is he answered my question or towers? Did you ask me another question? I feel like I did answer all your questions. Okay, so it sounds like you believe that someone who wants to occupy a space implicitly consents to following whatever rules they believe. No, they're not implicitly consenting. In fact, they're not consenting by taking a shit on my floor. So, I don't believe that, that, you know, simply because you go onto someone else's property that you're implying to consent to their rules. I mean, you can either consent to their rules or you don't. And if you don't, well, then you're violating their rights. And the reason why I would have the right to stop you from shitting on my floor is because I'm the owner, and the state is not the owner of the land, so therefore, you know.
I'm gonna wait for Tower and Varsity to finish, so.
No, yeah, you're good. It sounds like a sort of vicarious sense of the word consent. Well, if my will is known, so basically a consent is basically when you let your will know to another person about your property. It's basically an agreement between you and another person to respect property rights, essentially, or to do something for another person, which is another way of saying respecting property rights, because your body is your property. Thank you for the thorough response. My overall fear is that your anarcho society, if it's even possible to establish the first place, will last for a glorious scenery moment, but it will only last a moment. Shortly after, human nature will take over. The aforementioned power consolidated will commence in the anarcho society will become indistinguishable from the vain crony capitalism you criticize. Well, I really hope that that does not come to pass because us anarcho-capitalists have guns and we will win. Next question. Thank you for your question. I love answering questions about anarcho-capitalism. I'm addicted. I've drank the Kool-Aid. Hold on, I'm gonna grab a water bottle. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Is that a question towards me, JV, or is that a question towards him? Can you help me understand what you mean by human nature taking over? The context referring to specific human nature referring to... Oh, I think that's him. Oh, okay, got you. So glad it's my day off and I get to play World of Warcraft all day.
All right. The last thing I want to ask you, I have to leave for an appointment, but last thing I want to ask you is, how would your system of production, system of politics, ensure that more people get access to basic resources that they need to survive rather than the system we have now?
Nothing is ensuring that and people are getting a basic anything. In the end of the day, you get what you either trade with another person or you homestead, and that's what you get, and you don't get upset.
All right, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Yep. King set this on YouTube. All right. I think consent refers to an attitude as opposed to an action. Someone consents to a rule if they understand the implications of not following it. You seem to define consent in terms of whether or not someone follows a rule at the same time. I doubt you would agree. If someone who follows a certain rule containing consent, you presume you follow the rules of your state. I disagree with your view of consent. It isn't necessarily like it's people agreeing to follow rules. I think it's people respecting property rights, or an agreement between two individuals to respect property rights. So, for instance, let's say you're walking in the woods and you stumble upon someone's property, and but you didn't know it was their property. You didn't necessarily violate their consent, but you're still trespassing on their property because the reason why you didn't violate their consent was because there was no will that you were were aware of in which you violated. So it's a little bit different, and also the reason why I think it's when it comes to property rights, because all agreements between individuals, at least tangible, real agreements, generally apply to property rights. So if you're gonna have an agreement with somebody, it's going to be like, I don't want you to touch my body, for instance. I don't want you to, and because I consider our bodies to be our property, we say you cannot touch, I consider that to be a property right. Don't touch my stuff. That's all your property. So these are agreements between individuals to sort of respect property rights. Because the state is not the owner of the property, there is no implicit consent to their system. Also, just because you somebody says a rule to you and they say this is going to happen to you if you don't follow that rule, does not mean that they're just in carrying out that action when you break that rule. So for instance, let's say I come up to you with a gun and I say, give me your $5. I'm ruling to you that you must give me your $5, you know, you say, no, I don't want to give you the $5. And then I pull out that gun and I shoot you in the leg or something. I'm not just in shooting you. The reason why is because I'm not the owner of what I shot. that person's body is not my body. I can't touch it. So therefore, I don't have a right to, shoot that person. That person doesn't have the right to shoot that person. So what distinguishes whether or not a person has the right to carry out a rule is whether or not they are the owner of the property in which they are enforcing. And because the state is not the just owner of any of the property in which it claims to own, it does not have a right to tax me, or there's no implicit consent going on. Especially if I'm explicitly not consenting. Because there's actually a group of people called anarchists, right, that explicitly don't consent to taxation. Okay, I'm gonna read his next question. Fair enough. But if you replace the following the rules with the phrase respecting of property rights, it doesn't really change the substance of the question. Well, it changes the fact because that determines whether or not you have the right to enforce that rule is based on whether or not you are the owner of that property. And do I pay taxes? I'm forced to pay taxes. I don't have a choice to pay taxes. I am a hostage of the state.
Menethil is through Donalgas, then north along the road, then west at the fork. We're counting on you, adventurer. Do not fail.
No, I wouldn't say by paying taxes, I'm consenting to paying taxes. The reason why is because there's a threat behind if I don't pay taxes, right? If I don't pay taxes, someone's going to do something to me. If I don't pay taxes, people are going to show up to my house and arrest me. And if I resist, they'll do worse things to me. So there is a threat behind the transaction that makes it unconsensual. No, I don't. I don't agree with your implicit consent in the way that which you're saying it. No, I disagree. Just because, again, the only way in which you could have somebody tell you what they can do on a given land is if they are the owner of that land. If you're not the owner of that land, you don't have the right to tell anyone what to do on it. Plain and simple. You have two different definitions of consent that you don't seem to cohere with one another. That is my impression. I've given you I feel like was pretty clear about what I mean by what I say. Again, a consent is an agreement between two individuals to respect property rights. And because so for instance, like, if I say, I'm gonna go work for you, for this amount of money. That's an agreement between you and another person he's gonna respect your property rights, you're gonna respect his property rights, and you're gonna do something for him in exchange for something else, right? And then when you do that, you're going to, follow through with the exchange, you know what I mean? So that's kind of like, you're sort of recognizing the other person, property rights, whether it be in their body or the goods and services in which they're exchanging. Anyone want to ask me a question with their voice? That would be good. You don't necessarily need to violate a person's consent in order to violate their rights. So for instance, if you haven't made an agreement with another person not to shit on their floor prior to entering their house, but then you go into their house even though they don't want you to shit in their house, even though you may not have like agreed and then violated that agreement, you still have violated their rights because they are the owner of that property. So you are incorrect in stating that, but that would still be a violation of your rights. By that logic, hold on, I was just responding to one part of yours. I'm not fully finished. No, I don't consent to paying taxes even though I pay them in one place, whether it determines whether the action is actions but by their attitudes. Consent is taken into consideration because you're the owner of the property, so you're not supposed to not do things with property that the owner doesn't want you to do. So violated the consent of an owner is a violation of their rights. So that's why I tend to make that argument. But fundamentally, the real issue is that you're violating their rights. But by violating their consent, you are violating their rights. But you don't always need to necessarily violate a person's consent to violate their rights. Like for instance, the example of like trespassing on someone's lawn when you didn't realize that you were trespassing on their lawn. You're not necessarily violating the consent because you didn't make an agreement with anyone. You haven't violated anyone's agreement, but you're still kind of trespassing on that person's lawn. Now, let's say the person goes up to you and says, "Hey, get off my lawn," and then you stay there. Well, then you violated their consent because you know what their will is and you violated it and you went against it. So there's like so we hold like what we call that is a mens rea. That means basically when you are aware of the crime and you do it anyways. So that would actually be a step above like a normal like it would be worse than say like knowingly committing a crime versus like not knowingly committing a crime. There's like two different levels to that. Then it's kind of a category area to say that someone can... Well, if someone is forcing you to do something against your will, right? When you expressly tell them that you don't want them to do that thing to you, well then it is a violation of your rights. So if I expressly... now, there may be some people who... You may be right in the sense that some people may be indifferent to taxes, but that doesn't... So they're not necessarily violating an agreement because they're not necessarily disagreeing or they don't care enough to do anything about it. But it is still a violation of their rights because they're taking... There's a threat behind the taking of that property. And that's what... Because fundamentally, there is a threat of violence in that transaction that forces that other individual to do so. So just because some people may be indifferent to it, it still doesn't change the fact that it's still a violation of their rights. And the reason why I don't believe the state owns property is because the property in which it's holding, they didn't get it through a consensual transaction or homesteading. Those are the two ways in which you could come to own a property.
I have no doubt that the dam will be the target of the next Dark Iron threat. Most of the security detail here was reassigned to the Alliance front. including my top inspector. That's why I need you, adventurer. I spotted some dark iron sappers milling about the eastern ramp of the dam.
I might be a little confused about the relationship you see between violating consent and violating rights. Like, anytime I bring up consent, you say, well, it's more about violating rights. So I'm thinking maybe there is something I'm missing there. Okay, so what I mean is, if you walk up, like, let's say you walk on another person's property without knowing that it's their property. You're violating their rights, but in order to violate their consent, the person... Huh?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What's up, Sithis? You said earlier you wanted to actually talk to someone, through voice chat.
Yeah, just let me answer this question, and then we can... Okay, just... He asked me a question.
That sounds good,
man. So... Fuck, I forgot what I was saying. So what I was saying, if I'm not mistaken, was that if somebody walks on your property, they're not necessarily... violating your consent because there's no prior agreement between you and the other person, right? But you are violating their rights because that property in which you're standing on is not theirs, is not yours, I mean to say. So because the property is not yours, you don't have a right to stand on it if the person who owns it doesn't want you to stand on it. Now, let's say that person comes up to you and says, hey, get off of my lawn, and then you stay on the lawn despite knowing, even though his will has been granted to you, basically then you're basically violating his consent and his rights. Basically, you're violating his consent and his rights. So every time you violate your person's consent, you're violating their rights, but not every time you violate their rights, you're necessarily violating their consent, if that makes sense. Yeah, no problem answering. I have no problem answering your question. Go ahead, Tower.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I couldn't talk earlier because I'm at work right now, but, throughout the day I like to go for walks for my physical health.
Of course.
And while I'm walking, I might as well walk and talk, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me get my hat here, it's raining a bit. Alright, I only got I walk like a mile or something, so I got 6 to 8 minutes to talk around that.
That's
so
fine.
Forgive me if I gotta interrupt early. Yeah, so I guess just listening to the way what you're talking about and stuff, and I think this might even apply to varsity. I feel there might be a danger here with how you're thinking, and what I mean by that is that I'm not an expert on this in any means, but in political science, for instance, there's a distinction between the empiricist school of thought, and I think would be the rationalist school of thought. So whoever's not familiar with that distinction, the rationalist school of thought basically says, look, we can deduce laws of nature and how society should be formed based on thinking about it. And, abstract thought. So examples that would include the social construct, or perhaps even the American Constitution.
Yeah.
While the empiricists would say, well, hold on a minute. We shouldn't just sit around and think about human nature. Rather, we should consult with history. You see how humans have historically acted, and then base our, social structure on that. And so I guess what my fear is, I think you and perhaps even varsity here, and perhaps even really anyone who engages in these type of conversations, are being far too theoretical and abstract about it, and they should ground themselves. And so to give an example of what I mean, let's talk about women real quick, okay? So, women, women, I know it's a tangent, but just bear with me here, okay?
No,
I like
go
women,
ahead,
right?
go ahead,
You
go
know,
ahead, go ahead.
I love women, and I think about them all the time. And as it turns out, women like me a lot. I've been very successful in that department, as I'm sure you have as well.
I'm proud of you.
However, thank you. Hey, real recognizes real, you know. Anyways, there's a group of men who are very unsuccessful with women, and they have been called incels. You're probably familiar with the term, I'm correct?
Yeah, that's
So,
involuntary celibate.
yeah. So what do incels do, right? Okay, well, incels sit in their rooms, in their mom's basement, on their computers, on forum and messaging boards, where they theorize about women nature, right? And you know, they say women want this, women act like this is why women do such and such. And they even create all these technical lingo and terminology for it. Like if you listen to these dudes, they'll talk about fake cells and true cells. They'll talk about gym maxing or looks maxing. They'll talk about being alphas and sigmas and blah blah blah. Right?
Wait, is there a
I'm sure you've
question
heard
in
all.
any of this?
There, we'll get to that. We'll get.
Or are you just gonna
bear
make
with
a?
me
Are
here.
you making a speech?
Bear with me. I like to be a bit theatrical. I'm
Okay.
almost there. So, but like, if you talk to guys, okay, have you actually ever talked to a woman before, or like been with a woman?
No.
And the answer is usually no, right?
No.
So, like, that's the danger I see with the incel, and that's why they have these very warped perceptions about how women are. Because, and look, a lot of it can be formally true. A lot of what they say can be logically consistent, but it's just not grounded in anything real. And so while it may sound correct or logical, it's completely bizarre. And unfortunately, I see this a lot, with ANCAPs as well, to be frank. Like, I see these people who, again, sit in the room, perhaps playing World of Warcraft or something,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they theorize about,
Like
they
me.
theorize how this face, right? Well, hey, the boots fits, I don't know. But no, and they theorize all day about the state and about human nature.
Yeah.
I guess my question is like, have these people? I guess have you grounded yourself in history? Do you have a firm understanding of human nature that's grounded in history?
Nope.
Then I guess that's my concern.
Nope.
There, you might
not
be
even
like
a little
the
bit.
Incels. Well, I guess that's
and
my
I'm an
concern.
incel too.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yep. I don't even know I've never had a girlfriend in my life.
Sucks, man. They're pretty nice. But anyway, I guess that's my concern. I'm not trying to be insulting. It's just my concern is that you might be wrapping yourself up in these abstractions and these technical lingos, but not grounding yourself in history. I guess that's my concern.
True. What was the question?
Well, I guess my question. I guess how can you make sure that you yourself have not fallen into that trap like the incels have?
I'm already in the trap, bro. I'm deep. I'm in so deep I can't get myself out.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I guess I would suggest to you then to go out. I don't know, ground yourself in history or whatever, and I think you might find there's a lot more regarding the subject of the state and of human nature than what can be encapsulated in theories.
I'm sure you believe so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that's just my position on it. I guess that's it.
Based in red pill.
Wait, Tower, how am I, you said your critiques of Sithis apply to me, or may apply to me as well, so how am I failing to ground myself in history?
Well, let me check the chat here.
Oh, bro, he's pulling up the receipts.
It's like, I don't know.
Oh, yes, right here, you failed to ground yourself in history, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah, bro, if you grounded yourself in history, you would have known, How can you know about, like, something that happened 500 years ago if you can't even remember something that happened 10 minutes ago?
Sure, that's a good... No, I don't know. I mean, I didn't...
No, I don't...
Oh, I'm not... Sorry, I wasn't trying to, be polite. It's like...
I wasn't insulted, I'm genuinely curious.
I'm not insulted either, I'm just poking fun at him.
Oh, no, I feel this is a very serious thing. I guess,
I'm not
So I
serious.
don't know, looking at you, Bars, it's like, it seems, like you said, Bars, it seems like sometimes you define consent in terms of action. And, like, here's how, like, there's a distinction between formal truth and material truth, okay? And it seems like in this server, there's a very high emphasis on formal truths, talking about definitions, defining things, comparing concepts to one another. And I guess it's just my fear is that you guys aren't grounding yourself in actual reality. And so you might be getting lost in definitions and
maybe we should all head to the brothel after this.
Definitions bear out in reality. Like, if you take something like consent or justice or whatever, like, any kind of normative concepts, and can't get clear on, if we can't agree on what those terms refer to, then that's going to bear out in opposing actions. Like, if there's a contradiction in someone's definition of a normative action, then there's going to be contradictions in the actions they take.
And the implications that they have in reality. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's very important to formalize reality, to put it into concepts and things that we can communicate. But, like, again, it's like there's too much of something is a bad thing. If you spend too much time formalizing to the point where your formalizations take on a life of their own, and all of your conceptualization begins in formalizations, mediates through formalizations, and concludes in formalizations, you're doing stuff that may, like, score you points in, like, a debate.
All right, bro. We get it. We get it. You go out on the weekends and you get bitches. We get it, bro. You get more bitches than us. All right. Okay, bro. We got it, bro.
How does it? But what I said doesn't. What I said doesn't terminate in formalizations. I literally said, like, it terminates in the actions we do, like, in the material world. So, and also just saying, like, well, sometimes we do that too much. Okay, well, what does too much mean? And how is my asking Sithis to resolve what I perceive as contradictions in his definition of consent? How is that me going beyond the appropriate amount of caring about formalizations?
I can't really answer that nuance of a question. This is just my feelings and intuition on the topic. Just something to keep in mind.
Well,
we don't go based on feelings here.
You described a certain way of engaging with a topic and implied that I was engaging with it in that way, and I'm asking you to explain specifically how that is, how you're seeing that manifested in the way I'm engaging.
Well, I don't want to get lost in weeds, but one, I didn't say you were.
We don't want to get lost in the weeds. We don't want to have to, like, actually provide specific examples of where you're doing the thing I'm saying you're doing.
No, so again, like, there is a usefulness to thinking about things and defining things, and if that's what you're doing, it seems like that's what you're doing. That's great. It just seems to me. And if you want to maybe this doesn't apply to you. Maybe you have the wisdom and experience to not fall into this trap. But what I see a lot of people falling the trap into, especially online debaters and stuff, is this idea of, like, they get lost in the sauce, if you will. They get lost in theorizing and all that. But look, if it doesn't apply to you, I'm very, like, Varsity, you're a very smart guy. I think you're actually a very wise guy as well, especially given all your experience. So I guess I'd like to apologize for the implication. You're probably the person I'm the least worried about on this server.
Hey, what about me, bro?
And second,
there's no need to apologize. But part of the reason I feel like it's important to respond to those kinds of critiques is because I think those are precisely the sorts of things that come up very often, especially with people that aren't that familiar or aren't that acquainted with, like, actually studying philosophy. Like, it's kind of a layperson's, and I'm not using that word as, like, a derogative, of just mean someone who isn't maybe formally educated in philosophy or doesn't really read philosophy, but they have some idea of what philosophy is, and they think, like, oh, it's just people just talking and arguing over nothing for no reason. And those are, a lot of philosophers will just kind of dismiss that as, like, oh, you don't understand, but I don't really think that approach is helpful. I think philosophers have a responsibility to try and give an account for why their discipline matters, especially to people who don't think it does. And if we can't do that, then I think that we're failing too. I mean, we're lending support to the idea that our discipline doesn't matter if we can't do that. So that's why I think it's important to answer those questions when they come up, because that's kind of what it seems like you're talking about. It's like the usefulness of the kind of disputes that philosophers engage in, you're saying distracts from the issues that actually matter, and I don't think it does. So that's why I think it's important to answer those questions. Not because I was like offended or anything, but yeah.
All right, shake
Oh,
hands.
absolutely. I love you, Varsity, more than life itself. You're the best. You too, Sithis. I'm
You're
sorry
all right,
about
you're
your
all right.
sorry about your install issues, but you'll get through it, man. Don't worry. I promise
Oh
you,
yeah,
it'll get better.
Hopefully, I hope
have
so.
been
Maybe if I
wondering
start looks
lately, though,
maxing and watching Andrew Tate, I'll get
Oh,
it.
oh yeah, dude. Just at the gym, dude. They're just be 6 feet tall. You'll be good. Don't
Oh
worry
yeah,
about it.
definitely.
I have been wondering, though, to your credit, Tower, if there is not some sliver of maybe prejudice against phenomenology on our server here. You know, thinking
Maybe.
about the way that we engage with you and maybe Garrett a little bit, which maybe that's something to look into.
Oh, maybe. What can I say?
I'm
I'm a
the
very
best
emotional
ANCAP.
guy. Anyways. Yeah, cool. Well, I might walk about ending here. Thank you guys for the conversation. I appreciate it.
Good luck.
No problem.
Anything else? Any more questions about anarcho-capitalism?
You know, I mean, it's not a topic that I'm as well versed in as maybe Lego here, or yourself, I guess. But obviously, it's kind of unavoidable in the.
I hope
the
I
world of
resolved that
online
contradiction
philosophy.
with my definition of consent you were saying.
There was something you said towards the end that I felt like I was understanding. Well, where you were saying where some people, you can violate someone's consent without. Wait, you can violate someone's consent.
You can violate someone's rights without violating the consent.
Without violating.
But every time you violate someone's,
Okay.
I mean, not every time. Well,
Yeah.
But and you can violate another person's consent without violating their rights. So, so for instance, I think I said that wrong the first time, but that's what I meant to say now. What I've said now is what I meant to say, which is, so the first instance, which is, you know, like the example which I gave earlier, like you stumbled upon someone's property, you didn't know that their property was there, so there was no agreement between you and the person before then to not step on the property. So that person's will isn't known up to you about what should and shouldn't be done with the property. So therefore, you may be trespassing, right? But you're not necessarily violating his consent. But let's say he walks up to you and he says, "Hey, get off my property." Then you stay. I mean, you decide to stay and not leave, even though he's told you to leave. Then yeah, you're now violating his consent and his rights, basically. But let's say I were to run up to you and I were to punch you or something, like unprovoked, you know, just out of nowhere for no reason. And you decide to retaliate against me by punching me back, basically. Now, you violated my consent, but you have not violated my rights. And the reason why is because you have the right to punch me back because I'm the one that initiated the aggression against you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, so I guess I'm not seeing how the clarification you gave as far as someone being able to violate someone's rights without necessarily violating their consent resolves the contradiction I was picking up on about what I see as two different senses of consent that you're operating with.
There's only one sense of consent in which I'm operating on. It is a respect. It is an agreement between two individuals to respect property rights.
So
I've said
maybe
that from the
you can
beginning.
explain. Yeah. So maybe how would we determine, like, if I said Sam violated Paul's consent, what evidence would we look for to prove
Well,
that
who's the
that
property
statement
owner?
is true?
Well, who is the one? Who's the aggressor? And be the property owner would have the right to restrict others from that property, and
Well,
the aggressor.
I'm asking more, maybe more of a broad question. Like, I'm saying, like, what would make that true? Would it be something that we look for in Sam's behavior? Would it be something that we look for in
What we would look for is who's the
Sam's?
property owner. Because you're the property owner of your body, no one has the right to initiate force against it unless you say so.
Okay, so let's say you're the property owner of your bedroom,
Mm-hmm.
and I say that Sam has violated Sithis' consent.
Mm-hmm.
What makes that true is the fact that you're the owner of your bedroom.
Well, you could violate a person's consent. What makes it a violation of their rights would be if they own the bedroom or not.
Well, I think what I'm trying to point out is there's something missing here, where it's not just about whoever is the property owner. It's, I mean, for, like, at the very minimum, we'd have to know, like, what.
Well, you would have to, at the
Why
minimum,
this-
you would need to know who the property owner is, and then you would have to figure out who is the one who's the violator of the property rights. You would have to figure out who's the initiator of aggression, the aggressor, basically. Who's the one, in the wrong.
Oh, that was I unmuted you, Chase. I don't know why you were muted before.
I think it was like laying in bed or something.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think I get what varsity means. Like, it's the property is not the entirety of the consent, but I do think whose property it is always a relevant aspect of determining consent.
Well, yeah, because the reason why it's wrong to violate, like, to use another person's body, like punch somebody or something, like unprovoked, right? Because they're the owners of their bodies. They own their body. So for you to use it without their consent would be to violate their property rights. Because all rights are property rights.
Maybe I can put it. Maybe I can word it a little differently, because it doesn't seem like what I'm getting at is coming across. If I were to say, King Sithis respects the property of the state, and someone was like, "Really? That anarcho-capitalist guy? I doubt that very much. What's your evidence?" And I said, "Well, King Sithis pays taxes." Would you consider that evidentiary of the claim that you respect the property of the state?
It would depend on whether or not there's a threat behind that transaction. And for one, I don't believe a state could own property. Don't mean to be technical on you, but the state can't really own property because everything that it takes, it's done unconsensually. If it's the owner of the property, it wouldn't be a state. It would just be an owner or a company. So just because I pay taxes doesn't mean I'm consenting to the transaction. Because there's a threat of violence behind. Hold on, because there's a threat of violence behind that transaction if I do not participate in that transaction. So if there was no threat of violence behind that transaction and I still chose to transact in that transaction, then you could say I'm consenting. But because there's an explicit violent aggression that happens if you don't pay taxes, well then that doesn't make it a consensual transaction or even implied.
Right. I didn't think that you would say that that just the fact that you pay taxes means you necessarily consent to. I mean, we went over this in chat.
Okay, wait a minute.
It seems like
if I pull a gun on you, right, and I say, "Give me $5," right, and you say, here's the $5. Have you consented to that transaction?
Okay, I'm gonna just reread what I wrote.
No. Wait. Don't avoid the question. Come on.
I think consent refers to an attitude as opposed to an action. That's something you disagreed with, where I said that, where I said I think consent refers to an attitude
is
as
that
opposed
like
to an
that's
action.
not an? I don't think that's
But
really an answer
it
to my
doesn't seem
question.
like you, but it doesn't seem like you do disagree with that definition,
So-
because case in point, you perform the action of paying taxes, but you don't consider that consent.
Yeah, because there's a
Because
threat. There's a
consent
threat
is-
behind there's a threat behind a transaction. If there's a threat behind the transaction, it's a non-consensual transaction. If I pull a gun on you and I say, "Hey, if you do not give me this $5, it is a threat. If there's a threat behind the transaction. If there's a threat behind the transaction, it makes it non-consensual.
Consent.
Yeah, if there's a threat behind there's a transaction, it's a non-consensual transaction. If you say, if you do not pay this, I will do this, and I pay you, that doesn't make it consensual. I'm just not. I'm giving it to you, despite the fact I don't want you, because I don't want to be killed or harmed. Doesn't make it consent. That's like saying if a guy goes up to a woman,
which is what I said. That consent is defined in terms of attitude, not.
It's not
in terms
defined
of
on
action.
attitude. It is dependent on your attitude. What you believe you should or should not do on. Yeah, I mean we can agree on that if that's what you mean by that. Yeah. But the thing is, the thing is that I disagree with you on is that you're paying taxes does not imply that you're agreeing to it or consenting to it. That's just incorrect.
No, I don't believe that. Well, I mean, my main concern here was trying to figure out how you're defining consent, but it seems like we do actually agree that consent is defined in terms of someone's attitude.
Well, if you mean by attitude, you mean their whims, as in they choose what they want to do with their property, then yeah, I agree with you. They could choose what they want to do with their property based on their own whims.
But the issue is that in other places, it seems like you do define consent in terms of actions.
Well, yes, if you do something an action that violates the rights of a property owner, then or goes against the will of a property owner, then you're violating their consent.
No. Well, I'm talking about like whether or not the person doing the thing that you want to call a violation has consented to the rule.
Oh, if you don't consent to the rules, well then you're violating their rights. You may not be violating the consent. That's why I differentiated between violating rights and violating consent.
A more simple way of putting it is like, do you think that someone can follow a rule but not consent to it?
Yes.
Okay.
So if there's because like for instance, again, and I'm sure you would agree with me, which is that let's say I pull a gun on you and I say, here's the rule. You got to give me $5 every weekend, and if you don't, I'm going to shoot you. And then you say, no, I'm not going to do it. Or you say, hey, don't shoot me. Here you go. Have you consented to that transaction?
I will have to think about whether...
That's an obvious no, correct?
No, I'm not even responding to that because it's not really relevant to what
It is relevant because it's absolutely relevant. Absolutely relevant.
But the main thing I was going to say is that I'll have to think about whether
you would have to explain why it's not relevant.
Yeah, like isn't persuasion involved in supposed consent very relevant? Like, what's the argument to it not being relevant?
Because I'm just trying to figure out how he's defining consent.
I've defined consent like 20 times.
I mean, shouldn't the use of force be... I mean, isn't that relevant to the definition of consent also? I mean, what's the argument to it not being relevant to the definition of consent? It seems, I mean...
It has to be relevant.
I am not saying it's not relevant to the definition of consent. I said it's not relevant to what I'm interested in, which was how he's using the term consent seemingly in two different ways, but it seems like we've kind of resolved that.
Well, yeah, because I'm right.
Well, maybe. I don't know.
I'm not maybe. I am correct, because if you have to agree with me on this. If another person comes up to you with a gun and says, hey, give me your money, and you give it to them and say, hey, do it here, take it, don't kill me, you're not consenting to that. That's clear.
I'd have to think about whether or not consent is even like...
Well, how about this? Let me put it a different way then. How about this? I go up to a woman, I say, come here, and I pull a gun on her, and I say, I want you to do this sexual favor for me right now, and if you don't, I'm going to shoot you. And she refuses. And then I say, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to shoot you. And then she says, all right, I'll do it, but just don't kill me. Is she consenting to that action?
No.
Okay, so you can answer the question. So you do know the answer.
I mean, I don't see why this is so controversial. Like, is there just like a negative?
Well, I'm not understanding why, like, why the question is being asked.
Because
in the case of the taxes, people perhaps would not want to engage without the persuasion.
Yeah, you argued earlier, and correct me if I'm not incorrect. You said that by paying, you're saying that I'm contradictory because I pay taxes, and by paying taxes, I'm consenting to what the state is doing to me. But I'm saying, wait a minute, it's not consensual because if I don't pay taxes, someone's going to kill me. So if there's a threat behind the transaction, it is not consensual, and you seem to have a disagreement with that. So that's why I brought up this hypothetical to see if you actually disagree with that. And you don't actually agree with what you said. You agree with me.
Yeah, so no, I wasn't. What I was trying to show was that if you define consent solely in terms of what action someone performs, then you would be contradicting yourself by saying I pay taxes, but I don't consent to paying taxes.
The only argument that I'm making is that a consent is an agreement between two individuals to respect property rights. That's the only argument that I've made.
Right.
What is your issue with that disagreement? Do you disagree with that?
What I was going to say is it seems like we cleared up what I said before.
Okay. So you do agree that if I pull a gun on you, right, and I say, give me your money, I'm violating your consent?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I mean, I'll say if anything, it should be non-controversial and not even a fault on people who are in favor of the state for taxes, economic systems, and laws to be defined as non-consensual. Like there are laws you disagree with. I mean, surely those aren't. I mean, consent to the democratic process to enact them, but I mean, there's stuff that you staunchly disagree with that you probably don't consent to, like the use of funds for immoral purposes, but still under the democratic process.
Yeah, I don't care about democracy.
Ethos has a question, or well, I guess it's.
Well, was that
I
a
don't
question?
know if it's a question or if it's a.
Or was that just a statement? What he just said. Chase.
I don't know.
What?
Oh, I thought was that a question or was you just making a statement?
I was kind of just thinking out loud. I guess everyone consents. I guess everyone consents to the democratic process, and then through that, the majority votes for taxes, is where the consent would probably be applied in the tax situation.
What if I don't vote?
Well, I guess like it turns into a more of a statism debate where you don't consent to be in the state. I guess you're born in the country, you're in the country. I'm sure like people in the China under the CCP didn't want to be there. I guess I'm sure they don't consent to all the stuff the CCP does.
So let's say there's 10 people on an island, and there's like 9 guys and 1 woman. The 10 guys, they decide, you know what, we're gonna democratically vote to do sexual things to this woman. And I mean, if she disagrees, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, she's she was born here. What can she do? And hey, I mean, we democratically voted for it, so would you say that would be legitimate?
So I guess it just turns into like statism again, like being a sovereign citizen. Like if you don't want to be part of the state and be ruled under the democracy that who you know to be the majority of people around you are going to vote in, then it turns into statism, I guess. I mean, some people don't like states.
I don't like the state.
Like if you're surrounded by people who are going to a bad democracy, it wouldn't be negative to say that you're not consenting to the democratically enacted laws, taxes that are going on around you.
I explicitly don't consent to it.
Well, I don't know what country you live in, but most people are actually pretty
US?
hype on the U.S. But like, if you were like a reasonable person in like Nazi Germany or like some sort of like Russia or something, like you could say I don't consent to the democracy around me. But most people somewhat consent to the U.S.'s existence.
gonna keep my eye on you.
What happens if they choose, I don't want to pay?
Well, I mean, it's tough because you're like in an organized state's operation, so you have to interact with them.
So yeah, that's the issue, right?
Let
It's
me ask you
unconsensual.
a different spin on one of the questions. Let's go back to the taking a shit on your floor experiment.
Sure,
Which
my man.
I seriously find that so funny that you
You're
brought
fine.
that up, and I literally was I had that typed out like in my notes, like
That's
because
funny.
I don't know, something told me, I was like, I feel like we're gonna get to
Taking a poop
but
on
so
someone's
let
floor.
me ask you this. What if I come to your house and you say, okay, you please don't shit on my bedroom floor.
Mhm.
And I don't agree with that. I really want to do that, but I also want to stay in your house. So I decide not to shit on your floor. But I don't like it. I think I should be allowed to shit on your floor. Whatever my reason is, doesn't matter. What would you say of that? Would you say that I am consenting to the don't shit on your floor rule, or whatever you want to call it, or no?
Well,
Wait, can you?
I would just say,
Okay,
like,
can you restate the question in a more coherent, like
More
respectful?
concisely?
Yeah, because yeah.
So let's say that I don't shit on your floor, but I want to. I want to shit on your floor, but I don't do it because I
Mhm.
understand that that's the rule. If I want to stay in your house, then I can't shit on your floor. Is that an example of me consenting to the don't shit on your floor rule, or no?
Yeah, because there's no threat of force behind it.
although I would say it's probably not analogous, because why are you in the house? This analogy, in the terms of taxes, you're born into the state against your will. Like, you're born into as a human in a state, and you have to pay
Yeah,
the
I would say
taxes
that makes it
upon your
worse.
democracy. Like in the house, like you just leave the house and like take a, go somewhere else and do what you need to do.
Again, it seems like people are interpreting questions I'm asking as something other than what they are. I don't know where I said that this was meant to be an analogy for anything. Maybe earlier I had
Okay, so
used it
you're
that way,
saying
but
that
not right now.
if I could
I'm still
read
trying
it,
to figure out how
hold on,
you
let me
define
answer your
consent.
question if that's okay. So what you're saying is that somebody comes into your house, right, and then they say, "I want to shit on the floor," and you say, "No, don't shit on my floor," and they say, "Okay." You're saying, and you're asking me, are they consenting to that? Is that what your question is?
Wait, what?
Okay, so you asked me if a person comes into my house and says, "I want to shit on your floor," and then I say, "No, you can't," and then you say, "Okay," and then you ask me, are you consenting? Is that person who wants to shit on the floor consenting to not doing so because the owner says not to? Is that your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so what do you think my answer to that question is going to be?
I think your answer is going to be that they are consenting.
There you go. Why? Why do you think I think that?
I'm not sure why you think that.
Okay. So the difference between
my thought, well, because if I were to say, well, you probably think that because you would consider consent to come down to what actions a person actually takes, but we've already established that that isn't how you define consent, because, like, case in point, someone
I
paying
said
taxes isn't
whether or
necessarily
not
consenting to it.
whether or not it matters about their consent or not, is whether or not they have a right over the thing in which they want to do something with. If you don't have a right to do something with something that you don't own, well then your consent with that thing doesn't really matter. You don't have to, like, so for instance, if I want to go into your property and take a shit on your property and I tell you leave my property and then you say no and then I force you out, right? I'm allowed to do that. Your consent doesn't matter in that situation because it is my property to begin with. So, but if you say I'll stay, but I won't shit on your property and I still allow you to stay, well then you're basically agreeing, hey, I'll respect your property rights. So that is a consensual transaction. Now with the state, it's different because it's the reason why it's not a consensual transaction is because there's a threat behind the transaction, and the state is not the owner of the property in which it's trying to expropriate. So because of those caveat, those things that are also with that, it makes it different than a person, saying, don't poop on my lawn. All right, I won't poop on your lawn. It's completely different because there's no. You're allowed to use a threat of force to stop someone from pooping on your property because you are the owner. But the claim I'm making is the state is not the owner of the land.
Okay. So, but there is a threat of force with the shitting on your floor thing.
Well, there could be,
because you would probably throw me out of your house.
Yeah, there could be, yeah. But you're justified in doing that because you're the owner.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it comes down to for you.
Yeah, fundamentally, it is whether or not you're the owner or not the owner.
Well, then that kind of goes back. If that's the case, then that kind of goes back to my other concern, which is that then the notion of consent, even applying that to the state, would become a categorical error, because it sounds like if what you're saying is true, that the state doesn't own the property for which people are being taxed, then it's not something to which somebody could consent or not consent. It would be like saying, it would be a categorical error. Like, it would be,
how about this? If I come up to you and I pull a gun on you,
right?
If I come up to you and I pull up a gun on you, and I say, give me the $5 in your pocket, are you consenting to that transaction?
I'm having trouble understanding what I'm not trying to be deliberately.
You're kind of being a little bit
with this.
weaselly. No, you're being a little weaselly right now. I need you to answer the question.
Let me finish what I was saying. I'm not trying to be deliberately obtuse. I'm genuinely having a hard time understanding how that question
I could tell you
to
because
what I said about it being a categorical.
Yeah, I could explain. Yeah, so the reason why is because, again, there are clear ways in which the libertarians determine who is the owner of a good property. We believe in a first comer principle, which is homesteading principle, and we believe in the voluntary transaction of goods and services. If you didn't get your property in those ways, well, then the only other way in which you can get it is by taking it from another person without their consent. The state did not come to own its property through consensual transaction. It didn't, homestead the land. People were here beforehand, unless, you believe, that there's no such thing as Indians or whatever. So it has to be that the state is not the just owner of the property.
Okay. Maybe I need to do this in smaller steps. Maybe I'm not saying that about you. I'm saying maybe I'm tripping over something here, or skipping over something rather.
Mm-hmm.
So my issue or my concern is that if consent comes down to whether or not someone is the rightful property owner and the state is not the rightful property owner, to me it seems like I don't know, I guess it just seems weird to me to say it seems weird to me to even call it an issue of consent or non-consent if it's not something that the state could possibly have
hold on
rightful ownership of.
It's clearly wrong to violate the consent of people who own their bodies, right?
I don't know what that means.
Am I allowed to touch your body without you wanting me to?
Well, again, help me understand how that responds to.
Wait. No, I'm gonna answer it, but I want you clearly. So I think it's a little bit weird that you don't want to answer whether or not it's okay to grab someone by the crotch without their consent. I think so. Are you trying to say that you think it's okay to do that?
I think we have stepped outside the realm of good faith.
No, but I just think it's a little bit weird that, like, every time I ask you a clear question that is, like, is somebody allowed to violate another person's property? The clear answer is no. Obviously, someone's not allowed to rape someone. No, clearly somebody's not allowed to grab someone by the crotch. But every time I ask you that question, it's like you don't know the answer. It's like, so do you not know the answer or something?
He left, bro.
Okay.
Looking for something specific? Be careful.
I think it's only moral when Donald Trump does it.
Grab her by the pussy. But you get what I'm trying to say, right? Like, it's clear that It's very clear that it's not okay to grab someone by the crotch.
Well, if you're looking to get there quickly.
Well, I mean, I thought his line of inquiry was all right. I think he was trying to get you to clarify what he was potentially considering to be a category error, which I don't think it actually is, but I think he was just a little confused on how it is that I only caught like the sort of tail end there, but like,
Hey,
seemed like he
hey, bro. If I grab you by the crotch, is that okay?
no.
Okay, thank you.
It now if Trump does it, that's
Oh, but if
completely
Trump
fine.
does it,
But-
oh, okay, got you. Based. I didn't take that into consideration. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, he's different. He's handpicked by fucking God himself, so he sets at it.
No, I was just getting tired of his weaseliness. You know what I'm saying? Like, anytime somebody asks me a question, I answer it very straight up. You know what I mean? Yes, no, yes, no, yes. You know what I'm saying? And if I don't say yes or no, then I try to clarify myself. If I ask you a question, just answer the fucking question, either yes or no. You know, if you don't answer the question, it just seems to me like you're being a weasel. Sorry, that's very weaselly. Especially like if it's a very easy answer to the question to answer. Not even Lego would do that.
I think he would do it just to fuck with you.
Maybe to fuck with me, but he wouldn't do it unironically.
Yeah, like if he did it, there's meaning behind it. He is straight up trying to fuck with you, and he's doing it for the lulz.
I am back.
All right, man. You all right?
I needed to gather my thoughts.
All right. So you figured out whether or not it's okay to grab someone by the crotch or not?
I have always if we're assuming that the person doesn't want their crotch to be grabbed.
Of course.
Right. So no, I would say that's not okay.
Okay.
What I was saying before was I was having a hard time understanding how that question was a response to the issue that I was trying to highlight. But
I don't even remember.
I thought about it.
Where
And I was like, well, I guess we can maybe just focus on the question and see where it goes from there.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're saying you forgot where we're at. But basically, and I'm not even sure if this is accurate or not. To me, something is telling me that there's possibly a category error going on, but maybe there isn't. And maybe is that maybe why you were giving me this question?
No, I think you're just being a little bit weaselly by not answering my questions, and I just got annoyed with it. So that's why. I think it's very weaselly when I ask a very basic question and you can't say to answer it because you feel like it's gonna give me ground.
Respond to the question I just asked.
What was the question you just asked? I feel like I answered it.
Okay, so I was saying that I'll just say what I said again. Maybe this time you can listen. I could be wrong about this, but something is telling me that there's some sort of category error going on. And the reason is because it doesn't seem like the state is ever something to which someone could or could not consent to paying taxes on your view.
Well, taxes
that's not
under my view is unconsensual because there's a threat behind it.
So my theory is that the reason you were asking this question is to show that no, it's not a category error.
Yes. I only ask questions to clarify. I only ask questions to clarify. So if you were to say
I'm
no,
trying to clarify what you.
So my answer. Okay. So here's my reasoning for asking you the question. You asked me, can I, or can somebody? I think the question was the lines. I can't even remember what your question was, honestly. So how about you remind me of the question, and then I'll re-answer it.
Well, I was saying that I thought there was a categorical error maybe going on. I was trying to figure out if that impression was accurate or not.
Oh no, it's inaccurate. Very inaccurate.
Okay, so can you? And I'm assuming that the reason you asked that question was to show that it's inaccurate.
Of course, yes.
So can you help me understand how that? I'm just asking you to tie
this
the two
I don't
things
think this
together.
is a band, honestly. I think this is a sports team or something. I don't remember the question, so I can't remember why I answered it in that way.
You just told me why you asked the question. You said it was to clarify that there is no categorical error going on.
Well, yeah, but I don't remember the question in that you asked me to lead up to that hypothetical.
It wasn't a question. It was me saying I
Wait, do
think
you
there's
remember?
a category error going on.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by like what you keep saying there's a category error, but like how is it a category error? Like what?
Well,
what am I saying that makes it?
Like
one?
I said, I could be wrong about this.
You are.
Because I do have a tendency sometimes to maybe think there's a contradiction or something going on that other people maybe aren't seeing. And I might step back and be like, oh, okay, no, actually, I see where I'm confused. But the reason I was saying it seemed like there was a category error is because to me it's like if there's never an instance where someone could even possibly consent to the state, then it doesn't make sense to me to say that you're consenting or not consenting, because there are no cases ever where someone could consent.
Well, no, because there's a threat of violence behind it.
So maybe I should have clarified that from the beginning.
And then I believe I asked you the question again. If I asked you then I asked you the question. If somebody grabs your crotch without your consent, without you doing it, obviously, if I go up to you and I grab your crotch, am I violating your consent? And the answer is yes. So every time that I grab your crotch or take something or do something with a threat of force, then yeah, they are violating that person's consent. So if taxation entails the threat of force, if you do not pay this thing, then yeah, it's always going to entail the violation of consent. Because of that.
So I guess I'm still a little bit confused then why you asked that question, if now you're telling me that you actually didn't understand what I meant by a categorical error. But then you also said that
no, I asked you to clarify. I asked you to clarify what was the categorical error in which you were saying there was.
Okay. Do you feel like I clarified that?
I still don't think there is a categorical error. Okay, it's categorical.
No.
Error.
I understand that, but did I at least clarify what?
Yeah, you clarified what you meant. But I've also clarified why you're incorrect.
Okay. Yeah, maybe there isn't one. I have to think about it more.
There's a threat of force behind it. Anytime there's a threat of force behind a transaction, it's always going to be unconsensual, by definition. So because there's a threat of force behind taxation, we consider taxation to be theft. Like, it's pretty simple. Like, I don't mean to be rude, but like that's just how it is.
No, I don't think you're being rude. But I'm sorry, I heard you and Neuralist talking when I came back in, so I don't know if
don't worry about that. I was just calling him a gay bitch.
Yeah. I was calling him Papi Chulo.
Exactly. That's how we roll.
Yep.
You gay retarded bitch.
He's just mad because everyone thinks I'm the best ANCAP and he's not.
Yeah, I'm pretty hard up.
Are there particular ANCAP people are there like particular philosophers that ANCAPs typically all subscribe to, or are there like controversies? Like, are some people?
Well, there are some people.
I
who
like
are
this person, but I don't like that person. That sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, generally, Rob Hoppa and Rothbard are the big guys. Those two are the ones. Now, generally, like the main guy is really Rothbard. Everybody kind of and before him was Mises, but Rothbard was kind of the one who took like all of his teachings and turned it into what is anarcho-capitalism now, and then Hoppe kind of took what his work and expanded on it, and then now there's Stefan Kinsella and Liquid Zulu, a YouTuber who basically took all their work and expanded on their work. So those are the people like I look up to personally, but the main guy is Rothbard.
Where does Rand fit into the picture?
Rand, she's an objectivist, so not every anarcho-capitalist is an objectivist, so we don't we don't consider her to be the big
if you were to take my expert opinion on that, Matt, and I say expert kind of being snobbish because like I've just read so much Rand, but
no, you're an expert.
Yeah, I mean, that's something like that. I mean, like I said, I've read.
She has her own ideology.
Ever wrote. But so basically, what I would say about that is, prior to anarcho-capitalism emerging as sort of a proper political ideology, what you had in the world was objectivism, and objectivism is kind of this full-blown system that spans all of the branches of philosophy, which kind of serves as like a foundation for all of these ideas that through time, as they emerge and they're refined, kind of change and evolve, right? So she's kind of like this weird platform. And even people, I think it was like Rothbard himself, like after she got finished with Atlas Shrugged and got it published, like sent her a personal letter that was like, we literally full-throated, like just endorse everything that this book stands for. So she's basically the sort of philosophical backbone, because like as far as my small readings of like Hoppe and Rothbard, I can't detect a comprehensive system of philosophy, but I can detect that in Rand, because objectivism is a comprehensive system.
So you haven't really engaged with the more what you would call economical anarcho-capitalist stuff, but yet you arrive at that position nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, moving away from objectivism and developing my own philosophy, what ended up happening was that I kind of ended up, in doing the project, developed what I would consider to be a comprehensive libertarian philosophy. So you could come at it through neuralism, or you could come at it through objectivism. So what I'm really kind of trying to identify there is that my ethical system leads to this, irrespective of who's written on it, or like what their economic takes are or principles.
You know, I was reading something. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna add, like, my ethics naturally imply like a non-state society, but I'm of a practical mind where I'm not retarded, right? And I know human psychopathology is ineradicable. So until the ANCAPs can really come up with a genuine system of protection against violations of cognition or violations of the NAP or of man's rights, however you want to sort of formulate it, the state is an inevitable necessity.
I was reading something this morning on r/ask philosophy. It was like why it was something about Ayn Rand. It was something about like why no philosophers take her seriously or something. Which that's not the point I'm bringing it up. It's the point is I don't remember if it was the original poster that said something about it or if it was one of the comments. But there were things that people were saying about her philosophy, which I don't really know that much about, that seemed really similar to stuff that you say in neuralism. Like there was something like something about like that she looks at value as being dependent on the facts of reality or something like that. I can't remember what the actual.
So she thinks that value is that which one acts to gain or to keep. So that's her formulation of value. Mine's just a little bit different. I'm saying that value is it's literally a neurological, neuronal construct that is found in the human.
Can I
Objectivism is a cult.
The thing because I found the thing I'm looking for. Says
sorry guys.
They said that Rand says value comes from the requirements of life. Does that sound right?
Kinda and not really. So this is how she kind of formulates it. So basically, value is that which one acts to gain or to keep, but the rational man is only going to pursue those things which promote his life. And you can only determine those things based on the individual in question's identity.
like the actual facts of their existence. Right? So in her mind, eating food and high quality food, the higher quality, the better. It's like the pursuit of food is ethical. The pursuit of excellence is ethical. The pursuit of productivity, anything that promotes man's life. And she says it promotes man's life because, like, you can actually witness the outcomes, right? You eat healthy food, you're nourished, right? You do something productive that takes a lot of mental effort and you complete it, you gain a lot of joy, right? You meet somebody who shares your values and you fall in love, that's a win in and of itself, right? But these are all facts of reality that are associated with you as a human. That's kind of her formulation. It's not necessarily that, like, she draws value from facts of reality.
Yeah, I was misquoting it, I guess. They said that value comes from the requirements of life. And then they said that Randians disagree with each other about what that actually means. Like, for example, they said how she means requirements is a matter of dispute, with some folks reading it more narrowly and literally, and other folks reading it eudaimonically, i.e., what man needs to really live. Does that sound like something you've come across?
Yeah, it's both, right? So, like, there's the basic requirements that if you choose life, right? Because at the core of objectivism is the choice of choosing life for its own sake. Once you have that in mind, it's like there is the sort of more rigid, narrow kind of way that you're talking about. Like, I must eat food. Right? Not eating food doesn't promote my life, therefore it's bad. But there is also the striving towards excellence, the striving towards becoming, like, you know, highly productive, this kind of thing. Arete, on and on, right? So it's actually both. If I understood the question.
Yeah, the original post was actually about, I thought it was about why don't they take her seriously, but that was a different one. It was whether or not she has solved the is-ought problem.
Yeah,
is that something that you...
Yeah, she talks about that in Virtue of Selfishness. So basically, she promotes this idea that every is implies an ought. The is determined by the identity, and the ought is determined by what kind of actions must you take to promote your life as the identity that you are, and that's going to be determined in and of itself by your identity.
Big titties.
Does that kind of make sense?
It does. Do you see the is-ought problem as a problem, or is that one of those philosophical quote-unquote problems that you don't think is a problem, like the mind-body problem? I know you kind of feel that way about and stuff.
I mean, kind of. Like, logically, yes, it's a problem in terms of, like, formulation. But it's nothing that I really bother myself with, because it's like, at the end of the day, I am still an entity that must act, right? I absolutely cannot not act. It's not possible. So if I'm going to be acting in this world that basically has me in its crosshairs, right, and I value my life, well, then I'm going to be doing things that promote that life, right? It doesn't matter if there's, like, some logical formulation we can get.
Okay. What about what if somebody said that living in a state helps promote their life? What would you say to that?
I would say in many ways
they're
it's
lying
true.
to themselves.
No, in many ways it's true.
I mean, it could be true because if you're benefiting from the state.
Well, but we're also talking about an entity that takes people's lives just out court, and even in the millions, right? So, like, if my life is being bettered, this is kind of how I'm thinking of it in my head. If my life is being bettered by the state at the expense of millions of people and their actual lives, like, as in they don't even exist anymore because we've killed them, that's not the kind of bribe that I think I'm into. That makes sense. But that's not to say that good things cannot come from the state. They can. The state is merely a bunch of people being organized and, like, doing things together. Like, yes, of course, there's going to be naturally good things that come from that.
Sithis, Well, and I guess, yeah, Gary, you can answer this question too. Although I kind of know your origin story a little more than I know Sithis is. But how did you get into anarcho-capitalism? Like, were you something else before, or was this like the first any kind of political philosophy that you got into, or what? What
yeah,
happened
so I was first around like many years ago, around probably like in 2016 era. I was probably more the Republican, and then I started off as a Republican. Then I kind of turned into well, actually, before that, I guess you could say I was more progressive before I turned into a Republican, because the 2016 election kind of changed my views on a lot of like stuff. So I guess you could say I was progressive before that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I guess I started off being more progressive, like liberal. I watched the TYT and all that too. Then
Young Turks.
Yeah, the Young Turks. Yeah, I used to watch them. And then, but I wasn't like heavy into it. You know what I mean? I just watched them to see what was going on. And then, I eventually kind of got into Donald Trump because like I started watching these wrecked feminist videos, and
well, that shit was hilarious.
Yeah, that shit would make me laugh really hard. And then I would just watch, and then it kind of just put me down the rabbit hole of the right wing stuff. And I became a right winger for a bit, Trump lover, all that. And then I discovered John Stossel. And then he turned me into a libertarian, because I realized that I was right. I guess I was more right on like economic issues, but when it came to social issues, I did not give a single shit what people did. You know what I mean? I didn't care about trans people as much. I didn't really care about gay people smoking pot, doing drugs, like things like I didn't care about any of that stuff. And I always looked at Republicans as being so judgmental for caring so much about.
You didn't care, meaning you didn't think it was like.
No, I didn't think anything I didn't think what they were doing was wrong. But like there was so many Republicans that would look at like that and they would be like, "Oh, that's wrong. That's bad." Like you know what I mean? And I never had that opinion. So when I found John Stossel and I found libertarianism, that was just like, okay, I'm more of a libertarian now. And I was a libertarian for a couple of years. And then I recently, maybe like less than a year ago, a little less than that, I found Nico Zulu, and I became, from him, I discovered anarcho-capitalism. I didn't know anything about it.
So this was relatively recent.
Yeah, this was relatively recently. Yeah, and he knows it too, because I'm pretty sure you knew me when I was just a libertarian.
Yeah, I feel like I met you before a year ago.
Yeah, I was a normal libertarian. So basically when I found his videos, I didn't know I was aware of anarcho-capitalism, but I didn't know anything about it. So when he basically opened the door for me to because he would reference other people, and then I read their books and I watched their videos, and I just went down the rabbit hole, and now I'm here.
Sounds like you're giving a testimony.
Damn.
No, not really. Damn. But why do you think, or well, maybe I should ask first, like what generally is the response to anarcho when you come on and tell people that you're an anarcho-capitalist?
Isn't that a meme? That's like the main thing that I always hear. Isn't that a meme?
Immediate. It's almost immediate.
That's the first reaction you get?
Yeah, generally, yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's people that don't even like believe that there are people that genuinely believe it.
No, there's no, like, most people don't, like, even libertarians like that I talk to, they'll be like, "Wait, isn't that just a joke?" Like, no one actually believes that.
The only place I've ever actually hung out where the people that are here, as long as it seems to be me, for example, will genuinely entertain what the hell we're generally positing here.
To be fair,
and argue with us about it.
And I was a libertarian for years, and I didn't know anything about anarcho-capitalism. Imagine just your average progressive person, or left wing, or even a Republican person. You know what I'm saying? Like, so whenever I debate people, I have to sit here and explain an encyclopedia of ideology, because most people just don't really know it. You know what I mean? So.
I like getting scoffed at by the tankies because they're such fucking idiot retards.
I'll be right back.
Oh,
Give me
hi,
one sec.
Garrett. Oh, hi, Garrett.
Oh, Warmish is there. Oh shit, my bad.
Well, Matt, fuck you too. I'm joking. I'm joking. It's okay, Garrett. It's okay.
I know. I'm just playing with you.
Why do you think that is the reaction to?
I think it's because it's a baby philosophy. It's brand new. Like, it's brand new and it's loud, right? Like the people that are proponents of it are like kind of boisterous, but it's a brand new ideology.
I mean, I can give a very good reason why as to why I think it's I still scoff at it. So I'm going in the poli sci. Anarcho-capitalism. I'd even say this with Ancom
Alright, I'm back.
specifically. But for me, it's because at least the idea of it makes no fucking sense. I mean, I get
think it
it.
makes plenty
I
of
get
sense.
it. You know, I've talked. Wait, what? Wait, what said this?
Oh, I think it makes plenty of sense.
I mean,
Yeah, just so Sithis knows where the conversation went while he was away. Like, I was asking why you guys think that reaction, like, is why that's the reaction to your ideology, typically.
I can answer that question real quick. Like, I think the reason why is because it's relatively new. There's not many people who know about it, and the literature is very niche. Like I said, it's just not many people know about it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, even as a libertarian, I didn't know much about it. So
interesting. I don't know if you heard, but Garrett gave pretty much the same response, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, I feel like that's mainly the reason because, like, I mean, most people didn't know what anarcho-capitalism even was until they heard of Millet. And most people don't even know who Millet even is. Yeah, exactly.
President of Argentina.
Exactly. So, like, the thing is, it's not. I wouldn't say it's brand new because it's been around for a while.
It's been around.
The thing is, the people in it. I mean, in comparison to other philosophies, it's brand new. You know what I mean? But like the people who have been in it, they're just not that popular. Not many people know about them. Even in the libertarian circles, not many people know about them. So, and there's like a whole host of literature and things that, like, in order to understand anarcho-capitalism, you have to read a lot. Like, you kind of have to read a lot, and most people just don't have the time to do all that.
Read more theory, bro. Just read theory, bro.
Yeah.
I just realized I just remember I have to make a phone call, but I want to continue this conversation. But I'll be back in like 1 minute.
So.
And I hope you don't enjoy killing the buzzards.
You know, it's funny you say that about your like political transformation to this, because I actually had a very interesting political transformation as well.
You're a Trump supporter?
Well, okay, so my my family started out. My family's very Republican, right?
Mm-hmm.
But imagine almost every fucking code of Republican there is. I started getting into politics when I was very young, at like 6, because it's the interest I've loved since I was a fucking baby.
Mm-hmm.
So 2016, got into Trump, knew the day he fucking walked out of the escalator he was going to win.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know how to explain it. It's just his charisma.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of had the same shit that you're going in, but what changed me, funny enough, one of the very first things that made me change were the after reaction of the midterms of Trump.
Yeah.
You know, if you know what I'm talking about, Sithis, he gave a speech right after the midterms in which he just blamed everyone but himself.
Yeah.
And my reaction to hearing that was, dog, you fucked up so badly and you're just not taking any accountability. Yeah. And I was like, all right. Then COVID happens. I have a bunch of healthcare, have health issues, social issues. And then it's just, I've been going left more and more left wing. And now I think I've hit my apex of where I'm at, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm at where I'm at. I think this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm gonna stay. I'm not gonna change my ideology. I don't think so. I mean, if I change my ideology, it's gonna be like very small, minute things that aren't. But fundamentally, I'm always gonna be an ANCAP now.
See, I'll always be a
think-
neuralist.
I think the only
Yeah.
I think the only thing
Not
I
an
will
ACAT.
heavily change on, to be fair, is the ethical aspects of a state, to be fair. Because I do think there's areas of the state I do heavily disagree with. Cough cough, nations that commit genocides and shit.
Cough, cough. So
Yes,
all
yes,
of them.
yes.
All
No,
of them?
no, no. There's some states that are just objectively good.
Literally all.
Anyways,
I would disagree.
I'd say that. I know. I would say that, and then economics. Like economically, I'm just more and more left wing. I like the economics point is just like That's where I'm going.
Yeah, whereas me and my pal here couldn't be fucking more not that.
Yeah, I think the
I know
state is terrible.
I mean, you're staunchly capitalist. I am fucking not.
Oh, dude, capitalism. It's like, you know how some tankies regard the revolution of 1917 as the single greatest event in human history? I regard capitalism as the single greatest event.
Here's the funny thing. Even Adam Smith did not like landowners, and I think if Adam Smith did not like landowners, there's a reason why.
I love landlords. Landlords.
I'll be back, fellas.
Then that's
You
inherently
heard about the Dark Alignment.
then
Dark
that's
alignment.
inherently contradictory to
I love
to,
landlords.
Adam Smith. Then
I'm not an Adam Smith follower.
Adam Smith's the person who helped create capitalism. He is the original founder of it.
Capitalism is free markets. You don't create capitalism. He just put a name to something that was already there.
His advocation for it was I would argue, the beginning of it.
I mean, he may have advocated for it,
of course,
but
12, 13.
that doesn't mean that he's a god and I have to agree with him on every fucking thing he says.
I mean, no, but I would definitely say, like, if the main person behind your ideology is not good on landlords, then, I mean, look, I'm just saying. That's all I'm gonna say.
Well, he was wrong. I love landlords. What's wrong with landlords? Oh, wait, let's get into this. What's wrong with landlords?
They're greedy.
So, okay.
They're greedy.
What's wrong with that?
They're greedy. What's wrong with greed?
Yeah, what's wrong with
Create
greed?
some of the worst fucking people imaginable.
What do you mean? We all use a... What do you mean by greedy?
No, I think greed's bad. I think greed inherently is bad.
What is greed?
I'd say taking from people that are different than you, the ability to want more than everyone else, shit like that.
But what's wrong with that? Like, why can't I?
What's
wrong with me wanting more than other people?
I would argue it's a cluster B personality.
Well, I mean, I want more than other people.
But why?
Because I want to, be better than other people. Because I am better than other people.
And why is that?
Because I am.
I mean, I do too, but I don't base it off of.
Oh, so you're greed! Oh, you're a landlord.
No, that's not the argument I'm making. No, that's not the argument I'm making.
Okay, so what's
what
your
I mean,
argument?
greed is owning a bunch of shit and not helping anyone. Greed is, let's say, fucking over people, right? Not just having a bunch of shit, not just doing a bunch of shit, not just having the ability to express a lot of things, but
wait, but how is what's wrong with making?
What about? I want to see how Warmish would think about this. What about defining greed as taking more than you need at the expense of other people getting what they need?
Yes.
Does that work?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that if you're the owner of that thing. Like, if I don't want somebody to live on my property, like, I have the right to say no, right? Like, a prostitute has the right to say...
I never said that.
I mean, okay, but
I'm talking specifically about landlords.
Well, landlords own their property, do they not?
Landlords own their property? I mean, they do own their property in the fact that they own a bunch of houses, but they also cause the, I'd say they cause some of the homeless issues that we have to this day, including private equity. They jack up rent prices so people can't pay for things. I would say being a landlord is fucking, I fucking can't stand it.
Well, if you own a house, right, and someone wants to stay in that house, you have the right to charge someone to stay there, right? Like, you don't have to let them there.
I wouldn't charge them.
I mean, I know you wouldn't, but I'm asking you, like, you have the right to say, hey, I don't want to let this guy stay here. I mean, if you do want to stay, you gotta pay me.
I mean, again, depending on the person, sure, but I think someone just sucking off their life being a landlord, I think that's wrong.
Why?
I think that.
I mean, wait.
But
How do you think people get the money to buy land? You think if people just it's just handed to them?
Majority of it's inheritance.
Okay, but where did they get that money?
By taking it over.
By stealing it?
Taking it over, being a part of. I mean, if we're
rich people, and people who get
of owning land, it's either inheritance, taking over the land, or buying it.
Okay, so I mean, so you're saying that people who get their inheritance, they got it from someone who stole it? Is that what you're assuming?
That's not necessarily. I'm going by the traditional.
Well, okay, but then assuming
I'm talking about like if we're talking about 1300s, 1400s, shit like that.
I mean, assuming that, like, let's say I inherited a house, right, from my grandmother who bought it from working a job, right? And then somebody wants to move in.
There's no problem with that.
Okay, and somebody wants to move in, right? And I say, hey, you gotta pay me $2,000 a month.
Depends how much money they're making.
How do you? Okay.
Depends so how much money they're making.
So like, how do you determine like how much money would they need to make, and then how much like would that determine how much I can charge them? Like, you know.
So for example, there's specifically 3 things I'd be looking at. So number 1 is how much do utilities. So say someone with, let's say 50 grand, 45 to 50 grand wants to stay at my house. Let's say fine. I would look at how much I'm paying in terms of bills, in terms of utilities, all of that, and I would divide it. I would divide.
Okay. Listen, Mormish. I love you, bro, but you do this all the time where I ask you a question, and then you be like, I wouldn't do that. It's just like, I'm not asking you if you would do that. I'm asking you, how do you
I wouldn't.
I know you wouldn't. I know you. Okay. I don't care if you would or not. Okay, I don't care if you would or wouldn't do that. I'm asking.
Just told you how.
Hold on. Let me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. I'm asking you, how do you determine, like, okay, so like, there's a person, let's say I make $50,000 a year. Like, am I not allowed to charge him $2,000 a month? Am I not allowed to charge him $1,500? Like, how do you determine like what is too much?
I would say it. Fuck. I would say it depends on affordability of their life. I would make it to where if they still, I would make it to where they would still have enough money to spend some shit. Like if they wanted to spend some money on groceries, have some activities on their own, stuff like that.
But why is that my problem? Why is that my problem that they can't afford?
I mean, it's not your, okay, so it's not your, okay, so we're really talking about it in the traditional sense, it's not your problem, but I would say it's definitely your problem if that person is not happy, if that person's not able to succeed in their life.
I don't think that is my problem at all.
Taking a bunch of money from them.
I don't think that's my problem at all. I'm not taking anything.
I mean, you can say that.
I'm not taking anything.
Here's the thing. You can say that, but I would look based off the economy, right? A lot of people that own apartments right now aren't able to do a bunch of shit through private equity and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, if you want to live in someone's, if you want to live in someone's house, and if you want to live in someone's house. And they say, hey, you gotta pay.
Don't you want the economy to succeed, Sithis? Don't you want the economy to succeed?
What do you mean, economy to succeed? What do you mean by that?
I'm talking about the market. Don't you want the free, open market, in your words, to succeed?
I want people to not commit aggressions against people.
Okay, you're talking about aggression. I'm talking about the market itself, not about aggression.
The market is just I want people to have free exchanges of goods and services, and you can't have a market.
So you don't care if people can afford to use the free market.
I don't care. I don't care if you can't afford your rent, then I'm sorry, you can't stay there. Yes, I don't care.
I'm not even necessarily talking about that. I'm talking about anyone and everyone. I'm talking about for example,
it doesn't matter if you're
I'm talking about the fact that the majority of Americans are either in debt or they can't afford to buy even.
Yeah, that's the state. That's the issue of the state. The state, if the state,
That's not
maybe
the
if the
state. That's not the
state,
state, because
maybe
the
if the
state-
hold
okay, that's
on,
not
hold
the
on. You keep doing this thing where I answer a question, I answer a question, and then you say something else, and then I respond to that, and then you say something. Let's keep it one at a time, okay? Okay, you're making me laugh. Okay, listen. So. If the state didn't suck our wealth from us through inflation and taxation, maybe those people would have some money to pay the fucking rent. How about that?
You realize Ronald Reagan did exactly what you're talking about, and he fucked over our economy?
I don't know how you can fuck over an economy. An economy is not a person.
Let's see. Supply side. Okay, he used the lawfare curve, right? So the law. Okay. I'm gonna use the lawfare curve because he used the lawfare curve. He made it to where you barely would have to pay enough taxes, and because of barely enough paying for taxes, and also for the same time driving an increase in wage profit for CEOs and not for regular people. People not able to not only not afford certain things, but it made stuff like going to college, medical debt, and a bunch of other things way more expensive than it should be.
Yeah, just to be clear, I don't support what he did. I support abolishing taxes. Okay, so I don't support what he did. He may have lowered taxes. I mean, which is, I guess, a step in the right direction, right? But it isn't. It isn't
But
what
people
I support.
couldn't afford to buy things at all.
I mean, if you can't afford to buy something, I'm sorry, you can't get it. You don't have the right to take things from people because you can't afford a fucking house.
So only the top 1% will be able to afford things.
That's not true.
That is true. Do you know how many
so what do you
average Americans can own things? The majority
So
of them
you don't
are
own
dead.
anything?
I do own stuff, but under
Okay, so then
technicality,
you don't even believe that.
No, so I might be able to, but the majority of Americans are in debt. They have credit card debt. They have
Okay, well then maybe
medical
they shouldn't
debt.
have
They
spent
have
outside of their
college debt.
means. They shouldn't have spent outside of their means.
What?
I don't know what to tell you.
Should have they not gone to the hospital?
Maybe if the government didn't tax steal their wealth so much, they would have some
Should
more
they have
money.
not gone to the hospital to get the care that they needed?
If they want to go to the hospital and incur the debt, that's up to them, but they have to pay it back.
They should not be getting costs to go to a hospital.
Dude, there are costs to fucking all of this stuff. You can't just expect that shit to get for free.
No, they should not be going to a hospital and having to pay. That's why universal healthcare exists.
You have to pay. Wait a minute. There's no such thing as free healthcare. You have to pay one way or another. You're just using what you're saying is no. Listen to me. Listen. Hold on. What you're saying is no. I support free healthcare. You don't support free healthcare. What you support is the state stealing money from people and then using. Hold on. Stealing that money from innocent people and then using that money to pay for other people's healthcare.
Okay.
Do I support that? Hell no.
So sit this. So sit this. If that's the case, go tell Europeans that support universal healthcare that the money that they're giving to the government to have.
I would gladly tell them that they're being robbed. Yes. Yes, they are wrong.
They're not being robbed because they support it.
Yes, they are wrong. I don't care if they support it. I don't care if they support.
You
You could support. Listen, I could support. Robbing my neighbor, but that doesn't make it okay. Like, oh, your neighbor, but your neighbor supports it.
What are you getting robbed?
You are getting robbed.
Okay, of what?
Your money. How do you think they pay for that shit?
Through what? Okay.
Through
taxation. So if that's the
taxation.
case, what service? Okay, what services do you use daily, Sithis?
What do you mean? I'm playing World of Warcraft.
What services do you use daily? What stuff do you use daily?
Pornhub.
Cool. You do realize that's through an internet company, and the majority of internet companies, especially in the United States,
you said this last time
through
we
the
debated.
United States government.
Wait.
What?
Wait a minute. The internet is provided by private companies. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, but you do realize a lot of them have to go through the United States government.
That's not right. They shouldn't have to go through.
But they still have to go through the United States.
Yeah,
government.
why should they have to go through the United States government? If they own the land, they should be able to make internet there.
Wait, Warmish, what do you mean, Warmish, by they have to go through the U.S. government? What does that mean?
Most of the time when it comes to the internet, it's either making bandwidth about the same, so net neutrality, or another aspect of it would be
I don't support net neutrality.
Wait, what?
I don't support that.
Wait, can you let him
Okay.
finish? Because
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Either that, or it would be because of sometimes security reasons. It could be also because of I know some of it's hacking, and then I know other aspects would be down to regulation.
But like
so it's not like the government is paying for the internet, like in terms of like the government is spending,
They
maybe
give you
indirectly. Are you saying?
If I'm not mistaken, they give you a license. If I'm not mistaken, one of the
abolish
ways that
licensing.
they go through is a license.
Abolish
okay.
Don't
licenses.
you have to get some kind of? Don't you have to get some kind of? I don't know what they call it. Like it might be a license.
It's a license.
Where
Pretty
they
much.
like? Don't they like keep like they have like some warehouse or something where they keep all these like licenses?
So Warmish,
or something
can I say something real quick?
I heard.
Yeah, can I say something real quick? Okay, so Warmish, basically what you're saying is, I have to thank the government for forcing a private company to ask them permission to start and make internet. I have to thank the government for that? No. I think that what the government is doing, I think what the government is doing is violating the state is doing
They're not violating your rights.
They're violating those people's rights by not allowing them to homestead or purchase that land and create internet.
I mean, also, it's not like the private sector for internet's inefficient. Like the government's just asking the companies to do this, and by force they do it. It's not like if the government wasn't here, they'd be unable to.
You should go through the state.
Why should you have to ask permission to make internet?
So I think a government should have a monopoly over it. I think they just straight up should.
Why?
I'd rather trust the government than trust a private corporation that could cause.
Well, we might as well monopolize everything. We might as well, monopolize.
I don't disagree with monopolizing a lot of the industries.
Yeah, we should monopolize. We should monopolize brothels too.
Well, I think Sithis is asking a good question here. Like, if there's some reason you think the government should monopolize the internet, but there's other industries you don't think that they should monopolize, that might be interesting to hear why.
I'm in favor of well, if we're really talking about internet, I would say that it should be used as another town square. Just like how, town newspapers were used as a town square, just like how,
what about the supermarket?
Fucking go into
hold on, let me finish.
Sorry.
You'd go into like the square and do that. I think it should be regulated based off of that. So I believe that there needs to be more protections for free speech, but at the same time, you should allow for. I think there needs to be very specific things when it comes to it. So I'm more looking at it from like that aspect, right? So like from the speech aspect, from a journalist perspective, stuff like that. I would say that there are aspects of the internet that absolutely still needs to get regulated. So like the deep web, the dark web, shit
That's
like
my
that.
favorite part.
I'd say just based off of security reasons alone.
So I get that you're explaining why you think the government should monopolize the internet, but I was asked, did you hear what I asked about? Like you had mentioned that there were some other industries that you don't think the government should monopolize. But what would some examples of that be?
Non-monopolization.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say probably I would say maybe certain commercialized industries. So like the movie industry or gaming industry, because they're providing art and they're providing culture. I still think they should be able to give grants from the government, which a lot of them get grants and subsidies from the government to make stuff. But I would say
the internet
a lot of
providing culture.
Internet is, but I look at the internet as more than just providing culture.
Okay.
I mean, the internet now.
You said it. You look at it as a public.
Yeah, I mean, the best example I can give of this is the fact that, like, recently, about a month or two ago, the current vice president-elect's information got leaked, which I am fully in support of. But at the same time, that entire dossier was released, and I think that you should at least try and, if not curtail it, at least make ways to make it way better. So you don't have just a bunch of private information leaked.
So what about because Sithis had asked, what about supermarkets? Should the government monopolize supermarkets?
Food. I'd say no. I'd say no, but I'd rather no, but I would go around the route that like a lot of nations, like specifically like how France does with it, which is you have a bunch of unions basically control those sectors of the economy, and you have unions in the government work on I would say you work on subsidies, you would work on
bunch of lazy
stuff that's
unions.
in food, stuff like that.
Okay, what's your beef with unions, Sithis?
They're lazy.
I don't like. Oh,
they're fucking lazy.
Define lazy.
No, I don't have a fundamentally. I don't have a problem with unions, so long as it is enforced.
Also, is enforced or not enforced?
Is it like is no government is not like no one's forcing a company to recognize it or like if a company like let's say if a company you start a union with a group of people, you say I'm gonna walk out of here and if you guys don't pay me this whatever and that boss says all right, well take a hike then, get the fuck out of here. I think that boss has the right to do that.
And see, I would disagree with that.
Why?
Because of work protections and shit like that.
Yeah, you're not owed a job. Nobody owes you a job.
I would say at the same time, you're not owed to get wrongfully fired.
You're not owed a job. Now, what do you mean wrongfully fired? I can fire you for whatever. I can fire somebody for whatever reason.
You're never owed to be wrongfully fired.
Yeah, so that means
so
how do you determine something's fired?
So, for example, if we look at Ronald Reagan did in the 1980s with United Airlines, Ronald Reagan fired a bunch of people because they struck over pay, and I think that's bullshit.
Well, if
they're not paying strike over pay.
If he doesn't want to hire them, he don't have to.
Also, like, wouldn't that be the state, like, engaging in worker manipulation instead of the free market engaging in worker manipulation, since the president of the state engaged in this activity?
Okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't aware of all that. I thought you were talking about like a company. No. In that case, no. I'm talking if you're talking about like a private company, like a normal private company, and like in the same example, like a couple people be like, "Hey, I'm gonna quit if you don't pay me this money," and that boss says, "Fuck you guys, get out of here." He could do that. That's his shit. If I own a business and I say, "Yo, look at this fucking guy with red hair. I don't like that guy. Get him the fuck out of here." I can do that. That's my.
I want to see if I'm getting a firmer grasp of the anarcho-capitalist paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm assuming that if I were to ask why you think someone, you said no one owes you a job.
Yeah.
My theory about how you would explain that would be that because someone is the owner of a company and you're allowed to do with your own property whatever you want. Therefore, if you don't want to, say, have a union or whatever, you should be allowed. Basically, that follows from this idea that you should be allowed to do whatever you want with whatever you own.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yeah. Correct. 100%. Yeah. If I own a, like you said, like if I own a group of a company, that's my. Well, I mean, you can't really own a company. What you own is the assets that then make profit from and this and that. But I don't mean to get all technical. But when I say, that's what I mean when I say own a company. But fundamentally, when you own a company and all of its assets, you can exclude somebody from those assets, even for any irrational reason. Like it could just be like, oh, I don't like that guy because he has red hair or something like that. It could be something stupid like that. But fundamentally, it's yours. You could say, I don't want this guy here.
Well, I mean, you also own all the liability. Like, if you hire people and pay them for labor and no one buys the product, you lose money on the labor you paid for it. I mean, the laborers are only out their time and actually get fully compensated. But as the owner, quote unquote, of the labor, you actually are more at risk and have more exposure.
Yeah, but the thing is, the person who takes the risk also gets the benefit. So, if you say, hey, work for me, and and you're guaranteeing a pay, which is like how like most jobs are, they'd be like, okay, every week you're gonna get paid this much for this amount of hours, and then like that company goes under, you would still owe those people that money because you are basically you agreed to that, you know, already before you lost the money. So you know, that money is theirs, that, you know. But how they would get it from you if you don't have money at all, like, the thing is, if you don't have, like, if you're in a situation where like somebody owes you something but they don't have anything at all to give you, well, then at that point you're pretty much shit out of luck.
Ephus had a good question in the chat.
Could you read it?
He says segregation would be legal in Ancapistan.
Yes, technically, yes, but it depends. Well, it depends on what you mean by segregation. See, the thing is, like, when people think of like Jim Crow and the Jim Crow era and things like that, most people think like, oh, these were just private companies that just hated black people and they were kicking people out. What people don't realize is Jim Crow was a state enforced law, right? There was companies that didn't want to discriminate but were forced to do it anyways. So, but fundamentally, if you do own a business, you can discriminate, or you can say, hey, I don't want to do this for you. I don't want you in my property for any reason you want. Now, ideally, I would hope people wouldn't make arbitrary stuff like that, you know, decisions like that. But I can't tell people what to do with their property. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's kind of that's interesting to me that you would say that you would hope that, because to me it seems like the right to use your property however you please is kind of paramount.
Yeah, absolutely. Because fundamentally, you either have the right to do with your property what you will, or you don't. You know what I mean? And the only right that we have is property rights. You know, if you say, oh, people still self bodily autonomy. But the issue is your body is a scarce resource, and the reason why other people aren't allowed to use your body is because it's your property. If your body wasn't your property, well, then there would be nothing wrong with another person coming up to you and doing what they want with it, with the scarce resource that is your body. Because all of these things are scarce resources, and scarce resources are objects in which there could be conflicts over, which means that I can't use it in an exclusionary way at the same time as you. So, for instance, I can't wear a watch at the same time as you wear a watch and like walk away from each other or something like that. You know what I mean? So because of
well, the whole ownership of the self-ownership thing, that, from what I understand, is sort of the sticking point for a lot of people that you debate. Like, I know that's something you and Lego have probably debated over, is just that topic alone.
Yeah.
What are some of the objections you typically hear to that from people?
Well, the argument that I generally hear is like, oh, you're objectifying yourself. Generally, like, they just don't like the way that it's just more like a tone policing thing. Generally, it's like, I don't like the way that it sounds, or I don't think we should objectify people like this. You know what I mean? And to me, it is just a fact that we are objects. You know what I mean? Like, that's the debate that I had with Neuralist last night, where he was like, oh, humans are not mere objects. And I was like, what do you mean? Well, what do you mean by mere object? Well, it's something that could be acted upon. I was like, well, can your body be acted upon? Well, yes. Well, then your body is an object. It is just a fact that our body is a scarce resource. So in a dispute over your body, there must be one person who has the right to use that scarce resource. And us libertarians, we believe that it ought to be the person who inhabits it, so long as they have not initiated an aggression. Generally, like the argument is like, oh, I don't like the way it sounds. I don't like that we're objectifying people. Another argument that I hear a lot is, oh, well, wouldn't that endorse slavery or something like that? And then my argument against that would be, of course, well, if you own your body, it can never really be legitimate for there to be slavery, because if a person is forcing you to work, well, then they're violating your rights by using your body without your consent. And then if you choose to be a slave, quote unquote slave, well, then that's not really slavery, because you are choosing to do it, because, you know, you're consenting to the transaction, right? So it can never really, under our ethic, it can never really work that way. You know what I mean? So And a lot of people get that mixed up too, because they think like, oh, if you believe in self-ownership, that also means that you should be allowed to sell yourself. Well, it's just like, you can't legitimately sell yourself, you know what I mean, without violating your consent. And if you do consent to it, then it's not selling yourself. You're just doing something for someone. That makes sense. It's just a normal job, basically.
Maybe by saying that humans aren't mere objects, he was just pointing out that we're also subjects. Like, we don't just have the capacity to be acted upon, but we also have the capacity to act upon other things.
Well, yeah, that's why I said like I made the clarification that we're living objects, right? You know, and we're moral agents, and that's what sort of differentiates us from like a rock, right? And the reason why we're moral agents is because we have the ability to argue, and the reason why that's a big thing is because having the capacity to argue your case or have an understanding of other people's arguments or to engage in argumentation basically creates a situation where a person can be held responsible for their action while understanding what they're doing is wrong. Where you don't really have that with like an animal or a rock, right? If a rock were to fall onto a baby and crush its skull, you couldn't explain to the rock that was wrong. And the same thing with the animal. Like, you couldn't tell that animal, hey, what you did is wrong, so therefore you shouldn't have done that, right? Well, I mean, you could tell it that, but it's gonna be no different than talking to a wall, because it's never gonna be able to argue its case, understand your argument, right? So because of that, we're sort of separate from physical objects in the sense that we have agency, you know. Yeah. And Warmish, every time I debate him, it always makes me laugh. He always makes me laugh because he always says some wild ass shit.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think the way that he talks kind of just makes me laugh. Like, very oh well, don't you use internet? Huh? Well, don't
well, one thing I've found is everybody, has different ways of engaging with these kind of topics, and sometimes, I do think some people do certain things intentionally, but I think a lot of times, like for example, like there might be some people who, from my perspective, are unnecessarily obscurantist in the way that they talk about something. They're too jargon heavy, and I get the impression that it's intentional, that it's intentionally being used as a way of, making things confusing, so that way, you can say, like, if someone says something that you don't like, you can just be like, oh, well, you just misunderstood me. But if they say it the right way, then they can be like, oh, yeah, that is correct. But it works however, whatever's expedient to you at the time, because you've made your ideas so obscure that no one can really say, like, that you're like contradicting yourself or whatever. But then there's other times where I've thought about it and think, like, well, maybe this actually isn't intentional. Maybe this just is the way someone engages, which could be something that could be improved over time. So I guess I try to be a little bit careful with assuming for sure that something is being done intentionally as a way to obfuscate, but I don't always do it perfectly. I mean, I think I did it with you earlier on in our conversation, where my impression was that you may have been doing something to deliberately obfuscate things, but maybe you weren't. Maybe that was just my intent. Maybe that was just my impression. Maybe it also was the result of you feeling like I was maybe doing something to obfuscate things or get around things, and that you were then responding to, like, what ends up happening is people end up responding in kind of shadow boxing with these misapprehensions of what the other person is doing, to the point where the conversation is now being had between two shadows of the people that are actually in the conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I that's why whenever I use a word that I believe is different like for instance, when I say scarcity, at the minute that I used scarcity, I immediately defined what I meant by scarcity so that there was no confusion. You know, I tried to do my best to do that. Because I go,
Yeah, so
us
that's
ANCAPs go by
interesting.
different definitions. That's why us ANCAPs, we kind of use different definitions for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, well, that's something I think I've come to expect from, like, I think I have certain expectations of what I'm going to get from an interaction with somebody who describes themselves as an ANCAP. And those expectations may or may not be accurate. They may be accurate to some people, but not all who identify themselves that way. And, you know, but then that can factor into the way I end up engaging. That's kind of partly why I was asking why, like, what your experience has been as far as like the way people respond when you say like, oh, I'm an ANCAP or whatever, is because I'm also trying to understand, you know, what are my initial reactions when someone says that, and you know, where does that come from? Where is that actually? What is actually going on in my own mind? I think for me, I've had some interactions with people in the past that identify themselves that way, where I do feel like there is some unnecessary quibbling over terms, maybe some what I perceive as I don't know, maybe unnecessary tangents that we end up going down. But like like case in point, there you're saying that you rush to clarify what you mean by terms as you introduce them, which that's something that, you know, depending on the context, I might look at that and think, you know, oh, this person is giving a very long answer, longer than I think is really necessary, and maybe they're doing that to actually obfuscate things and confuse me. But but maybe ironically, you're actually doing it for exactly the opposite reason. You're trying to avoid confusion. You know?
Oh yeah, that's the reason why I did it. Yeah, because the thing is, like, I go into each conversation with like the assumption that, okay, well, this person probably doesn't know anything about anarcho-capitalism, right? So when I say, oh, scarcity, when people think of scarcity, generally they think like, oh, like, I'm just using it as an example. They think like, oh, well, something that's just there's not a lot of, right? Oh, well, water isn't scarce, so, you know, because there's a lot of water, right? But I would consider water to be a scarce resource because there could be conflicts over it. So, you know, how normal people would consider to be scarce, like I would not, right? Or I would, I guess, right? Or, you know, the other way around, right? So that's why I rush to be like, okay, this is what I mean when I say scarcity. Oh, well, this is what I mean when I say scarcity, and this is what I mean when I say this, and this is what I mean when I say this, because it's just like people are just not operating on the same wavelength as I am when it comes to a lot of these terms. They don't know what it means when I say it, or at least in the way that I mean it.
I would say water's pretty scarce.
Well, yes, well, I know, but I was just using that as an example.
Yeah, you were explaining how your definition of scarcity might differ from what most people think of when they think of scarce.
Yeah.
I think it'd be hard to define it as not scarce.
That may be.
Yeah, but some people, what I meant by that is some people define scarcity as not like whether or not there could be conflicts over it, but by whether or not there's an abundance of it or not. If there's like not an abundance of it, like for instance, some people would say, oh, well, water's scarce in Africa, but where I live, we have an abundance of water, so it's not scarce here. Well, it's just like, well, can you and your friend drink the same water bottle at the same time? Well, no. Well, then, yeah, you can have a conflict over it.
Interesting. It's probably like the demand. There's probably like a specific demand threshold that like initiates conflict. Like no matter how scarce or even abundant something is, like stuff that's like trivial, you probably just can't fight over, no matter how scarce it is.
Well, I mean, oxygen would probably fit that mold. Like for instance, like there's such an abundance of oxygen that most of the time people don't dispute over oxygen. So, you know, but that wouldn't not make it a scarce resource, would it? You know, because theoretically you could conflict over oxygen, right? You know, for instance, like if you're at the top of Mount Everest, right, and there's only one oxygen tank left, right, and there's two guys, well, only one of you guys are going to be able to breathe that air, right? So
yeah,
you
just do
know,
an easy clarifier. Like oxygen is not scarce everywhere, but there. But I guess it depends what perspective, though. Like from a personal perspective, like you can just breathe and like nothing will happen.
Where are you going?
Like from like
Well,
having enough
seen
air,
again
there's like a
quickly,
shared
then look no
tragedy
further.
of the commons, like keeping up trees, but no one's really personally involved in that. So for most people, air is just unlimited.
yeah, air. So because air is such an abundance, at least in the situation in which we're at right now on Earth, you know, where there is
I should
air,
there.
we don't really have disputes over air, right? Generally, you know. So, but that doesn't not make it a scarce resource. You know, it still is one. It's just you just generally don't argue over it.
I gotta run. This tower wanted to chat with me, but it's been interesting.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I talk.
Yeah. Yes, Ethos, I'm very happy that you changed your profile picture. By the way, I was very upset when you had it as Aaron Judge after the World Series. In fact, I'm still very upset about it right now. I'm going to leave the call because you've made me very upset.
Shit. Well, good luck, man.
It was nice talking. Yeah, it
You
was nice
too.
talking to you, King. Though.
Yeah, it was fun, man. I enjoyed answering all of you guys' questions.
It was nice.
Mhm.
It was nice, Ethos, until I remembered how upset that you made me. All right, I'll talk to you guys later.
You too, man. See ya. All right. Well, seems like the end of that. That was fun. You know, answering all the questions. Everybody was pretty cool and cordial. So yeah, I'm probably just gonna play for a little longer. Nothing here is more powerful than what I already currently have. Oh, that's PvP. Oof, don't want to do that. Tinkmaster? I'm pretty sure that's a dungeon quest, isn't it?
It has been proven that the light is with you, adventurer, but as times grow more dangerous, it becomes important to know what strength lies beneath the flesh. When demons, dragons, or any other evil set foot in your lands, your mettle will be tested. Will you be strong enough? Bravery, regardless of the situation, is as much a part of paladinhood as the light, your armor, and your weapon. Protecting the weak and not losing faith are two more lessons you must master while you study in the Cathedral of Light. Ah, you wish to petition me for a test of valor. Splendid. There are many tasks throughout the city and surrounding lands that hold much challenge, and they could use a man with your skills. This test should not be taken lightly, adventurer. This, like many things along our path, could take our lives. The Church always wishes to bolster its ranks, but it understands the sacrifices needed to ensure the paladins serving it are worthy. Are you prepared? Good. Your lack of hesitation is a sure sign that you are prepared and eager to test yourself. So be it. At the very ends of Westfall's longshore, a small house overlooks the ocean. There, a couple lives, the Stillwells. Jordan is an incredible smith, and he's gone to Ironforge to meet with the dwarves for a while, but this has left Daphne, his wife, alone and unprotected. Reports suggest that the Defias have all but taken over the area. Daphne may need some protection from the villains. Go there.
Divine protection? Just making sure I have all my stuff updated. Seal of the Crusader? I don't need that one, do I? Interesting. Righteous Fury, huh? Well, I can now do Exorcism. Instant cast? Wait, but does this not work on normal targets? Exorcism?
Tinkmaster Overspark is very upset with the fate of his mechanical creation, TechBot. I remember TechBot as a kind and helpful tool for the gnomes, but Overspark tells me it's malfunctioned. Very sad, but with luck, perhaps he can be fixed. Speak with Tinkmaster Overspark in Tinkertown in Ironforge. He would welcome your help.
No way! I got paid from DoorDash. I'm so happy about this. I didn't expect it to get the money so fast. That's not bad.
Have you come seeking training in the ways of armed combat?
Pole arms.
Or the Alliance?
Nani celerilo la 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 no 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 no. Bro, I just can't wait for fucking Fresh to come out. This server is packed right now though.
These great beasts know paths that you can't find on foot.
Why didn't they just fucking release Fresh already?
Show you something new at this.
Just release it already. La 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 la. So anybody who was watching, what did you guys think? Did you guys think I did a good job in this discussion or in that debate? Don't know if you guys watched it all or not. Alright. Let's go solo my junk and do that quest. I think it's over here.
You need something?
Look at all this junk. I am so glad that it cleans up all this junk for me.
See you later.
God, the UI in this game is so fucking good. It's just so damn good. Ugh, excuse me. Just so damn good. The classic version of this game is just the version of this game. It is the definitive version of this game, personally. I think classic is starting to grow on me a little bit. I'm starting to enjoy classic. I think even a little bit more than I'm starting to enjoy Wrath of the Lich King. I know. I loved Wrath of the Lich King too. Yeah. Wrath of the Lich King is a good game. I do want to make myself a character, another character, but I'm just like, Sithis, just wait for Classic Fresh. Just wait for Classic Fresh. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna wait for Classic Fresh. Do I have Blessing of Kings yet? Nah. Do you get Crusader Strike in I don't know. I don't remember. I'm trying to get a horse, bro. I already have enough money to get a horse, too. And I'm only level 20. That's because somebody gave me money. Somebody just came up to me and just gave me, like, 100 fucking gold. And I bought some bags with it. Look how big my bags are. Oh, yeah. 12 slot, 14, 16... Huh. Maybe I should do a dungeon while I'm doing all of this. Let's see what we got. Boost FFA. I'll ask him if I could join Black Fathom Deeps, but how do I get to Black Fathom Deeps? Need one. We'll see if anyone responds. I don't want to do a boost. I just want to play through it normally. Oh, this only works for undead? That's fucking ass. These are some alright perks. Kinda sucks. You don't get Crusader Strike, huh? No. Nice. Wow. Cool. What is she, a healer? Warrior? No. Excuse me. through level 26. You could do dead mines through level 26. Well, I'm putting my faith in this woman to hopefully find a lobby or a group of people for us to play with, ideally. Hold on, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to play some music. Alright, there you go. Oh, look, she's finding people. Excuse me. Nice. I was trying to see if I could make my way up there.
Hello, adventurer. I'm assuming by all that armor and weapon of yours, you're either here to try and take my land, or the church finally sent someone to help protect me while my Jordan's gone. Well, let me introduce myself. I'm Daphne Stillwell. It's a pleasure. Now you're not too late. I've only killed a half dozen of the scum since last sunup. They've been a little slow getting around the bend up there, but they probably saw you coming, which means they'll probably be here any minute. Now, they'll be coming again soon, I'd wager, so get yourself ready. I've got myself a gun in the house. I'll grab it and be ready to help you out, but for the most part, you're on your own. I have no idea how many they'll send. I'm sure it's more than the few they sent earlier. Ask the Lightfoot because I think they're coming. We make our stand.
Nice. Oh, fuck, more.
Light.
Fuck me. Tome of Valor failed. I think I need to be a level higher.
Alright, so what's up, all you beautiful honeys? How you guys doing tonight? Thanks for coming to Leech's Cantina. Thanks for coming to South by Southwest. We're a band called Chon. We're gonna play you some songs.
Alright guys, I think I'm gonna end the live stream now because I gotta go do some shit in real life. I have some adult shit I need to go do. But I had fun, you know. I'm gonna help her. Beautiful.
Now, they'll be coming again soon, I'd wager, so get yourself ready. I've got myself a gun in the house. I'll grab it and be ready to help you out. But for the most part, you're on your own. I've no idea how many they'll send, but I'm sure it'll be more than the few they sent earlier. Ask the light for whatever blessings you can, because... Did you hear that? I think they're coming. We make our stand near the house.
All right, woman. Let's do this. All right. Woo! Easy. Woo! Easy. World of Warcraft Classic is the best.
King's honor, friend.
King's honor. All right. That was very nice of her.
We've done it, adventurer. Thank you for your help. You were truly amazing out there. I never thought a paladin could handle so many enemies at once. You've truly shown bravery in the face of overwhelming odds. Please,
yes.
return to Duthorian and let him know that I'm safe for now. I have you and the church to thank for that. He'll send word to Ironforge to let my Jordan know that he has nothing to fear. Oh, how I miss my husband. I can't wait till he returns.
Alright, now I just gotta return to Stormwind and turn to that. Damn you. Ugh. Damn, these guys know how to shred.
Where are you going? Well, if you're looking to get there quickly, then look no further.
This music makes me happy. Ba-da-da.
So, we meet again, adventurer, and you are in high spirits, I see. The Stillwell home will be safe for another day, and from your story I see that there was no shortage of danger to be found. Well done. Daphne and Jordan have helped the church greatly, and having you protect their property and their very lives was the least we could do for them.
Sense undead.
For your valor, you will be rewarded. Actually, I have no doubt that Jordan himself would like to thank you. And seeing as I need a messenger to send word that his wife is safe, I think you'd be a perfect choice. Jordan was to be a paladin of the light before his dedication to his father's craft took him on another path. He's intimately familiar with our way of life and is considered among our most faithful. He should still be an ironman.
All right.
He likes to work outside the gates during the day, something about the cool mountain air.
All right, I'm gonna call it a night, guys. Have a good night.